Which, let's be for real, he said this on Sunday on CNN's State of the Union. Eric Swalwell is a Democrat from California and a 2020 presidential hopeful. He said the Second Amendment was not an absolute right, which, let's be for real, that is technically true. That is technically true. None of the rights in the Bill of Rights are actual full-on absolute rights, much like the First Amendment. I say this all the time in this program. Even the First Amendment is not an absolute right. There are certain things that you can be held accountable for that is not protected by the First Amendment. Look at something as simple as defamation law. I don't know. This is a terribly grotesque example to use, but look at something like child pornography. Pornography in general might be accounted for under the First Amendment, but child pornography certainly isn't. You can't consent to that. So that's what I'm saying. Technically speaking, he's correct. But if you hear Swalwell expand upon this even more, what he says is he's proposing something the exact same as the buyback program in Australia. And we've seen, unfortunately, how that buyback program in Australia has kind of worked out. Suffice it to say, it really hasn't worked out in the way they wanted it to. There's an incredible piece I want to get to today from The Atlantic. The headline here is, Democrats are falling into the Omar trap. Democrats are falling into the Ilhan Omar trap. Now, what they mean, and this is an incredible point that I think is much more so than just for Omar. It's obviously for Alexander Cortez. It's also for some of the stuff that the big story I'm getting to today is Trump's proposal to send immigrants to sanctuary cities, which I think is just... I have so much stuff to say on this. So much stuff to say on this. It broke on Thursday. If you were paying attention, it broke on Thursday. People said it broke on Friday. Not necessarily true. I brought it up on Friday's show for just a second because I really wanted to give it enough time to breathe and see how Democrats were going to react to this, because I'm telling y'all, man, it is too easy to play the game now. I don't know what happened, and I don't know when it happened, but it's far too easy now to basically allow Trump to force Democrats to just play into his hand with whatever he wants to happen. Now, I'll say this one more time, and then I'll go back to this Omar story, the reason why I brought this up. I'll say this once, and I'll probably say it way too many times throughout the program. It's going to get annoying to people, but it's true. No Republican in this country anywhere wants to seriously support Trump's proposal to send all these illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities. Nobody. Not a single one. And if you call in as a Republican and tell me you support this idea, I will convince you otherwise. I promise you. Any Republican, any conservative worth their salt knows exactly what Trump is doing here. Now, I'm not trying to say that Trump is playing 3D chess. That's not what I'm saying. This is so elementary. It's not even 1D chess. It's not even chess. I mean, you might as well just playing these political checkers if you want to. It's not a hard game that he's playing. Not a single Republican out there is genuinely supporting this idea of just shipping illegal immigrants off to sanctuary cities. We're not. Frankly speaking, I've been on here preaching this message that is the literal opposite of what we want. Because in my mind, that is the end goal of what I think the Democrat proposal or orchestration is actually trying to do. But therein lies the entire pitch. Do you see what I'm saying? Trump has this uncanny ability to just put out there, to immediately move that Overton window, to put out there what Republicans are actually frustrated with and actually thinking. Yet no previous president has been able to use the bully pulpit to immediately stamp on the American psyche to seriously deal with the issues at hand right in front of your face. Because every other president has been unwilling or afraid to say so. Republicans in this country for a very long time have been fearful, not necessarily, the ones that are actually in the know, have not necessarily been fearful of an illegal immigrant vote. Yes, that is a portion of it. That is something to do with it. The larger issue at hand, though, is the long con game. The larger issue at hand is it's the 2020 census question of, are you a citizen? That's the long con game. To change electoral college votes, to change House representation. That's what most Republicans that are actually in the know are concerned about. So if there's a conservative or Republican out there right now that's telling you he genuinely supports or she genuinely supports Trump's proposal of sending illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities, they're just trolling you. Or they don't really know what they're talking about, but they're just trolling you, much like Trump is trolling the left right now. But this is the thing. Republicans have been frustrated with thinking that might be the long con game, so what does Trump do? He just throws it out there and asks the question. He just asks the question. Is this the game you're playing, Democrats? Is it? Because you got one of two options here. Either you admit that that's the game you're playing, and you have to deal with the repercussions, Or you tell me you don't want illegal immigrants in your sanctuary cities. Then what does the definition of a sanctuary city mean to you? You understand how beautifully orchestrated this whole thing? And you also understand how simple it all is as well? All this plays in the headline from The Atlantic I was talking about before, too. Democrats falling into the Omar trap. When we come back, we're going to get straight into this Trump proposal of sending illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities. We'll hit this break. Be right back.
Someday they won't let you. Now you must agree.
Sorry, Facebook. I don't know what happened to the live stream there. All right. I'm going to re-share it on my pages. I'm still an admin. I find this funny. I'm still an admin, y'all, on this page. I was in a band in Louisville, Kentucky called Heatherfield. Actually, a pretty good band, I thought. But anyways, I'm still an admin on that page. I don't think anybody has posted anything to that page in probably 8 years. I just shared it to that page. That's funny. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Our internet dropped me for a second, y'all. All right, this is the real stream now, right? Y'all want to talk Mayor Pete today too? Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg. Well, how long did I tell y'all ago? Was it Monday or Tuesday last week, or was it the week before that? That's right, Kelly's in on Wednesday. Kelly's in on Wednesday. We're talking about, Kelly, tell him a little bit. I could probably go over this for him, but there's an actual event, right, Kelly? Federal mandated vaccines rally. All right, so there is a rally. Unfortunately, my information doesn't give me much more than just that. Kelly, if you're still, you want to tell them when and where the rally is? It's a federally mandated vaccine rally. Should be interesting. Regardless of how you feel about the vaccine issue as well, pro-vax or anti-vax, I would say, even for those that are pro-vaccine, I would say the important thing to focus on for that rally is the beginning portion of that, the federally mandated aspect, if you will. The dying breaths of the libertarian philosophy is maybe only left in a Rand Paul right now, and that's not exactly true, but even his extent is, hey, I vaccinate my kids, but you're talking about federal government forcing you to do so. I don't know, man. Rand Paul even says we got a problem there. Hey, 7:24
in the morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. A couple quick updates here, stories I may or may not get to if you want to talk about it. I'm going to go straight into Trump's proposal here to send illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities. I'm going to do that in just a second. Also, if for some weird reason, if you want to talk about it, Tiger Woods, he won the Masters. I don't know, man. I don't really care about that. But it's just, I mean, even other political talk shows are talking about this, so whatever. If you have an opinion on that, if you want to tie it to what I'm talking about, or if you just want to bring it up in general, I don't care. We can talk about that. A lot of people are saying it's a comeback story. Whatever, could be. Again, I don't really care. He's however many Masters away, not Masters, but majors away from catching, who's it, Mickelson? Again, you can see how much I know about this topic, so why are you wasting time on it, Mr. Henry? I don't know, man. We'll move on quickly. Also, apparently Facebook and Facebook and Instagram had major outages yesterday for a couple hours in a row. I listened to Reuters on the way in the morning, and they give these little 30-minute updates or whatever, and it was really interesting. They said that one of the comments that they focused on, everybody had to go to Twitter now, and one of the comments they were focusing on was from somebody in Spain, I think, saying, "Well, Facebook and Instagram are out now, so I guess I'm forced to socialize with my friends." And I don't know, man. For Reuters, I'm sure it was just an off-the-cuff remark, and they were trying to be somewhat comedic or comical about it, maybe even slightly satirical. I don't know. I kind of read a bit more into that, though, do you see what I'm saying a little bit about the Facebook, Instagram, social media stuff? Your Facebook and Instagram get shut down for 3.5 hours, and all of a sudden you get to this weirdly sort of, I don't know, it's a bit disconcerting, right? Now you have to actually be forced to socialize with your friends. Well, what in the world are you doing on Facebook, man? Anyways, Roz, can I get this, get a beer going here? All right, let's start this real, okay? So, again, it doesn't matter, man. I'm pulling them from Breitbart. I'm pulling them from New York Post. I'm pulling them from CNN. I'm pulling them from ABC. I mean, literally everybody and their mother is talking about this right now. The White House reportedly proposed releasing migrants in sanctuary cities, and a lot of people are saying it's for political reasons. A lot of people are saying it's an illegal act. Yeah, I mean, just the commentary could go in so many different directions. The hypocrisy is rampant. I don't know. I think it's just absolutely hilarious. It's one of my favorite stories I've covered in a long, long time. And again, this broke last Thursday. A lot of people would say it broke on Friday, but if the whisperings in Axios and a few others and the John Solomons and those who were paying attention, they were talking about this as of Thursday. Actually, if you remember on Friday's program, I brought this up. Yeah, Emma saying freedom or for the greater good, selfishness. I'm not sure if that was about the vaccine story. Oh, yeah, there's the other. That's right. That's the thing I forgot about. Kelly Northup, she is, coming in on Wednesday to talk about Saturday. This Saturday. Is that this Saturday? No, it's not. No, it's not. It's April 27th. The Maryville location, Sam Houston or Houston statue, depending on where you're from, I suppose, at 11 a.m. going to do what is this? Right. Federally mandated vaccines rally. We're going to talk about that on Wednesday. So, every Democrat in the world now has been saying, in the United States has been saying pretty much this right here. This is most of the important Democrat presidential candidates talking about illegal immigration, talking about sanctuary cities, talking about all the like. And Trump is, in my opinion, just simply responding to this.
If you could, would you kick the wall down now? Here.
Yes.
Like you have a wall.
Absolutely.
Knock it down.
Offer a home to refugees. That is who we are. That's our values. That's part of what we do.
So instead of building a wall or closing the border, we should choose compassion instead of cruelty.
We welcome refugees and bring people out of the shadows.
Immigration is not a security issue. It is an economic and a humanitarian and a family issue.
Now running. All right, no, I feel like that's worth repeating one more time. I got this clip from Tucker Carlson's show. You just heard from Kirsten Gillibrand, you heard from Beto O'Rourke, you heard from Kamala Harris. One more time, listen. These are Democrat presidential candidates. Elizabeth Warren was in there as well. These are Democrat presidential candidates talking about what they think about immigration situation going on right now, and primarily about sanctuary cities.
The president has affirmed this repeatedly.
If you could, would you kick the wall down now? Here.
Yes.
Like you have a wall.
Absolutely.
Knock it down.
Offer a home to refugees. That is who we are. That's our values. That's part of what we do.
So instead of building a wall or closing the border, we should choose compassion instead of cruelty.
We welcome refugees and bring people out of the shadows.
Immigration is not a security issue. It is an economic and a humanitarian and a family issue. There is no such thing as an illegal human.
All right, so Kirsten Gillibrand, one that, depending on which direction the political winds are blowing, she'll shift literally as easily as a plastic bag. Remember that scene from American Beauty? Remember that? How beautiful the plastic bag was flowing around the wind? That plastic bag's Kirsten Gillibrand. I just made myself laugh. That's true, though. That is true. Not to say that there's not versions on the right of that, but that's exactly who Kirsten Gillibrand is. On any given day, whatever direction this plastic bag's going to be blown in. What is it today? What's the hot topic of today? Yeah, sure. I don't care. It's an easterly wind, a westerly wind. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. I don't really have principles. It's just whatever people want to hear. No such thing as an illegal human being, she says. All right, fine. We can have a conversation about that. We can have a conversation about that. But therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem. I was just listening to Dr. Phil on Stephen Colbert's program, and this happened, I don't know, man, 6 or 7 months ago? It happened a while back. But even Dr. Phil was making the argument on Stephen Colbert's show, saying something effective. Well, man, it's just such a frustrating thing now because you can't really have a conversation with those on the other side, Republican or Democrat to Republican. And they ended up playing out the scenario by which Stephen Colbert was citing some things that had been happening that were relevant in the news. At that time, it was, I think, that individual that was mailing bombs to prominent political figures. And Stephen Colbert said, well, you know, what if you were trying to have a conversation with an individual who was trying to support mailing those bombs, or you know how Stephen Colbert does, man. I think it was also something, too, bringing up the topic of Trump just sort of using this unilateral executive order to take transgender individuals out of the military, and I use this example all the time. The New York Times author came out the following day and said, you can't legislate away my existence. And Stephen Colbert's comment was, well, what if you were trying to have a conversation with an individual that's trying to legislate away someone else's existence? Would you have a conversation with that person? But this kind of proves my point. It kind of proves my point. If everybody is immediately couched into these two terms of your moronic left who can't understand logic, or someone that's a KKK member and wanting to advocate for neo-Nazism on the right, if those are the two butting ram heads that we're constantly trying to deal with, then you're never going to be able to have the conversation because you're never going to be able to even posit the question. So you look at what President Trump does. He uses the bully pulpit of the presidential decree, I don't know, the Facebook or the Twitter account, whatever he does, to just throw that question out there. Okay, Kirsten Gillibrand, you said there's no such thing as an illegal human being. Let's put that to the test. Let's have that conversation. How do we have that conversation? Well, we can't just ask you. CNN just can't ask you. You're certainly not going to go on Fox News, so no one's going to just put the question to you. Secondly, if they do, they're going to let you get away with whatever spin you could possibly put on that. So Trump asked in a different way. He alleges that he's going to propose this, I don't know, executive order where he's just going to send a bunch of illegal cities, and then someone has to seriously respond. What is the response? Let's hit this break. I'll come back and show you Trump. You'll listen to Trump posing that question, and then you'll listen to the Democrat response, and it's too easy to even write now. 7:32. Be right back.
Strategies Incorporated. Good morning. I'm Tanya Stout-Brown with the local news update on Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760. It wasn't as severe as some other areas of the South, but East Tennessee was battered by high winds yesterday and last night. Trees toppled over and power lines went down. We'll keep you updated on the forecast throughout the day. A man accused of murder in DeKalb County, Georgia, is believed to be responsible for a double shooting that happened at the intersection of Cedar Lane and Rowan Street in Knoxville last night. A woman and a 2-year-old were hospitalized. Police say 29-year-old Victor Parsons drove away. Police followed him and tried to initiate a traffic stop, but Parsons kept going. Then they say he hit a 13-year-old who was riding a scooter on Linden Avenue. Parsons' abandoned car was found in an alley off College Street. He was last seen wearing a black hoodie and jeans. Police say if you see the suspect, you should call 911. Do not approach him. He is considered armed and dangerous. Just in time for summer vacation, the North Carolina State Transportation Department says all 4 lanes of I-40 at the state line will be open next month, maybe by May 3rd. The interstate was shut down on February 22nd because of a rock slide at mile marker 75. 21 dogs, 6 cats, and floors covered in animal feces. That's what Greene County Sheriff's deputies say they found at a home there. 2 people were taken into custody and faced charges of animal cruelty. The dogs had apparently been fed and had access to water, but the conditions were so deplorable that the deputies say they could smell the odor before they even went inside the house. And now you're up to date. I'm Tanya Stout-Brown on Talk Radio 90.3 and AM 760. Knoxville's talk you can trust.
This is Steve Vasgard of Wealth and Retirement Strategies. I help baby boomers create a dependable retirement plan. My mission statement is to teach you the wisdom of how money works for better stewardship, to potentially have more, to give more, and to leave more. If becoming a better steward of your wealth is important to you, and you need a dependable retirement plan as well, call for my video that explains all the ways I will help you. Please call 691-1211. That's 691-1211.
This Fox Business Report is brought to you by Sandler Sales Training.
From the Fox Business Network, an auto safety group wants the government to investigate brakes on Nissan Rogue SUVs because the cars could stop when there's no emergency. The Center for Auto Safety has petitioned the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration demanding a recall. Nissan has informed customers of a software update that improves performance of the automated braking system. The center says it found 87 complaints about unintended braking in the database of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And Mazda is recalling nearly 190,000 Mazda 3 compact cars for faulty windshield wipers. The cars involved are in the 2016 through 18 model years. A mechanism could stick, knocking out the front wipers. The Dow was up 269 on Friday. NASDAQ added 36, S&P up 19. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Ginny Cosola.
Prescription products require an online physician consultation and are only available if the physician determines a prescription is appropriate. See website for full details.
Hey guys, good news. The expensive little blue pill is now generic, which means you can get the prescription medication to treat ED at affordable prices. And now get your first month's supply for just $5 at 4hims.com/Chris. Hims connects you with real doctors online who can prescribe the medication. And a pharmacy sends it right to your door. So easy. To get your first order for just $5, you need to go to 4hims.com/Chris. That's 4hims.com/Chris.
Objection number 102. We have never worked with your company before. This is Steve Herzog with Sandler Training, Herzog & Associates at firstinsales.sandler.com. That's FIRSTINSALES.com. We have never worked with your company like yours before. Sounds like they have not been totally sold on your product and service. You can keep pushing your features and benefits, but the real issue is they are not completely sure that you can help them. Work on the right end of the problem. Find out how important it is for them to have the problem fixed. If it's not all the features and benefits you have to offer, what else could convince them? It may make sense to you for them to buy your product and service, but if it doesn't make sense to them, you're not going anywhere. To learn more about what you can do to help your prospect, contact Steve Herzog at Sandler Training, Herzog & Associates at www.firstinsales.sandler.com, and we'll do our best to help you.
Hey y'all, this is Rick Allen, host of Rick's House Home Improvement Radio Show. And we want to welcome our newest sponsor, EastTennesseeExteriors.com. You can find them on Facebook, and they're the people you can trust. EastTennesseeExteriors.com, 865-357-4326. 865-357-4326. Whether it's roofing, siding, windows, and more, great products at a fair price from a company you can trust. East Tennessee Exteriors, 865-357-4326.
Weather from the FMT Insurance Studios of Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760.
Hey everybody, hope you had a great weekend. We do expect some more sunshine, much cooler though, 60 to 65 this afternoon. Lows tonight should take us near 40 with a clear sky, and we're mostly sunny tomorrow. We jump back 70 to 75. Should be in the mid-70s through the middle part of the work week with an extra chance for scattered storms late Wednesday or Thursday later in the work week. Help make Ripley's Aquarium of the Smokies the #1 in America. Visit Ripley'sAquariumoftheSmokies.com daily to make your vote. From the 6th Storm Team, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Hinkin for the East Tennessee Weather Network.
It's 41 at Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760.
Mr. Electric of Knoxville is now hiring experienced electricians. Call 865-272-2749. Go online now to MrElectric.com.
Traffic from the FMT Insurance Studios of Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760.
Plenty of company on the main and secondaries. Interstate still pitted with some damaging potholes around 640. I know they were talking about a wreck Oak Ridge Highway, Carnes Valley, Oak Ridge Turnpike south of Oliver Springs Highway, and a truck apparently stuck under the railroad overpass, Central Avenue Pike, a little bit south of Atlantic. Fly nonstop to Miami out of McGee Tyson Airport on American Airlines. Visit AA.com and book your flight today. Good morning, I'm Pete Michaels.
Real news. Best news program in the history of this state, in the world.
Take out.
.40 in the morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. Real quick, let me catch everyone up what we're talking about. All right, so for the past couple of years, essentially since Trump has taken office, but most certainly since a lot of these Democrat individuals have announced that they're running for president, we've heard nothing but this regarding the immigration situation, regarding illegal immigrants, regarding undocumented migrants, regarding, I don't know, man, whatever term you want to call this, sanctuary cities, the whole like. We've heard this from, this is going to be Beto O'Rourke, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, all of them.
If you could, would you take the wall down now? Here. Yes. Like you have a wall. Absolutely. Knock it down.
Offer a home to refugees. That is who we are. That's our values. That's part of what we do.
So instead of building a wall or closing the border, we should choose compassion instead of cruelty.
We welcome refugees and bring people out of the shadows.
Immigration is not a security issue. It is an economic and a humanitarian and a family issue. There is no such thing as an illegal human.
All right, okay, cool. So let's have a conversation about that. Let's do it. So how do you force a conversation in today's day and age? You get Trump to tweet about it. Okay? And once Trump tweets about it, the White House comes out and says the exact opposite of what Trump tweets about, and then Trump doubles down. Now, this frustrates the ever-living fill in the blank out of Democrats. For Republicans, it's a pretty sweet deal, because we get to have our cake and eat it too. Let's be honest. Let's be honest, okay? You're trying to defend a stance to something that Trump has said, where the White House has said something different. You don't like what the White House has said, you go back and follow what Trump has said. And at the end of the day, you never really have any true understanding as to what Trump's actual policies are going to want to be. You just have to, everyone has to be forced to wait to see what the policy proposal is actually enacted. So here's Trump.
Mr. President, can you tell us your plans about sanctuary cities and illegal migrants?
Well, you know, the people that are putting sanctuary cities where they're not even wanted, because as you know, in California and other places, a lot of communities want to get out of sanctuary cities. They don't want them, but they always seem to have open arms. So we thought rather than moving the illegal immigrants to other parts of the country, first of all, we're getting them, and we're doing the best we can with very bad laws. We have to change the laws. But we're apprehending thousands and thousands of people a day. And the law only allows us to hold them, as you know, for 20 days because of the most ridiculous laws probably we have in this country. If Egypt had laws like that for 5G, you wouldn't have anything built. You'd never have the first...
No, hold on. The reason why he's bringing up 5G, by the way, I mean, just don't someone's going to misconstrue this and be confused. Wait. Why did Trump just draw the analogy to 5Gs? He's got a bunch of individuals in here right now, some corporate representatives, also some people that are about to be laying these lines, talking about the American proposal to increase 5G. That's a totally different topic. I just need to express that right now to get everyone on the same page as to what's going on.
Put up, but we have horrible, old-fashioned laws that are put in by the Democrats. We're willing to change them. We can do it in, I used to say 45 minutes. We can do it in 15 minutes, whether it's catch and release or chain migration or any of them. The asylum laws are absolutely insane. They come up, in many cases, they're rough gang members. In many cases, they're people with tremendous crime records, and they're given a statement to read by lawyers.
Does anyone else love to? This is one of the times I'm going to do this, okay? I do not think for a second that Trump is seriously considering this proposal. Secondly, I would not like him to seriously consider this proposal. The entire problem that I have had, and Republicans that are in the know have had, with the situation going on with illegal immigrants right now, and in sanctuary cities as well, is entirely antithetical to what Trump is talking about right now. That is the heart of the Republican issue. The heart of the Republican issue is not to allow illegal immigrants in sanctuary cities. Now, one more time, let me break down why sanctuary cities are a thing for a very, very, very simple understanding. The Supreme Court has been very, very clear that the policing power, enforcement of actual laws, is left to the states. The policing power is left to the states. All right, so and this is a bad analogy, a bad illegal analogy for several reasons, but it at least helps me prove my point right now. If you want to know why, for several years, Colorado and other states have been allowed to get away with legalized recreational use marijuana at a state level, but it's still illegal as far as I know at the federal level, this is a bit of what we're talking about. So the DEA can go into Colorado and shut all this stuff down if they want to, but they're wasting their time, their manpower, and their money. You understand what I'm saying? The federal government cannot force Colorado to enforce federal law. So this is why we have a sanctuary city situation right now. Frankly speaking, it's a bit of a 10th Amendment thing, too, that some Republicans should be okay with. Now, the fact that they're exploiting the system that way is a problem. But I've said from day one, and Republicans that actually understand what's going on from day one realized when we had that constitutional expert on this program from California saying it's not necessarily about illegal immigrants casting a vote. It's about illegal immigrants casting an acknowledgement on the census that they are due representation. And if they are due representation because they are a citizen of that city, therefore a citizen of the United States, it doesn't matter necessarily if they're voting. The bigger picture that matters is the Electoral College and the House of Representatives representation. Alabama, one more time. Alabama is about to lose a House seat because of sanctuary cities. So does anyone else find it just wonderful, insanely entertaining that Trump has spent now 1 minute and 20 seconds genuinely trying to make a pitch for this proposal? This is just like, this is quintessential trolling, y'all. This is throwing out, like, I don't know, an entire pig on the end of a bait, on the end of a fishing pole. You can see that he's clearly trolling you. This is clearly bait that's meant specifically for Democrats. It's a massive pig on the end of a fishing pole. How do you not see this? I'm not for this. Republicans aren't for this. What we're for is forcing Democrats to actually acknowledge for the first time ever in his presidency what they actually feel about this situation.
Standing there waiting for him, read this statement, and it says, I have great fear for my life. I have great fear for being in my country, even though in some cases, some of these people are holding their country's flags and waving their country's flags, and then they talk about the fear they have of being in the country, that the flag they were waving freely. So we are looking at the possibility, strongly looking at it, to be honest with you. California, the governor wants to have a lot of people coming in, refugees coming in, a lot of sanctuary cities, so we'll give them to the sanctuary cities maybe to take care of if that's the way they want it, because we can only hold them under the current law for 20 days.
I mean, come on, y'all. You got to be watching President Trump the same way I'm looking right now, too. I mean, there's things called micro-expressions, right? I don't know. Some people in the industry say it's a way you can tell if someone's lying or trying to be purposely misleading. I don't know. I don't get into that. But I will say, there's these sly little smirks that keep coming up on the corner of Trump's lip here. It's like, I don't know, the governor of California says he wants these, so, we'll give you some immigrants. I know, it's just like, you said you want them, and Trump's legitimately trying to play out the situation of, look, you won't give me a wall. You say $5.7 billion is too much to actually do anything. I have nowhere left to house these people, so let's be serious. If you say the solution is sanctuary cities, I'm going to see if the solution is actually sanctuary cities. Now, inevitably, what you're going to come back with is it's not. Inevitably, the Democrat response is going to be, it's not the solution. Now, here's something that I did not necessarily expect from Democrats. The response I heard from CNN is that Trump is using illegal immigrants as some version of a pawn, or to spread, this is directly from a CNN pundit, to spread a pestilence across America. Good Lord, are you serious? What idiot is running the Democrat response team right now? Seriously. That's the rhetoric you're going to use? Republicans, What are you trying to do? Prove to your base that Republicans are already xenophobic by using that type of terminology? Trump didn't say that. They already think that about Trump. You're the one that came out and said there was some kind of plague on America, as if Trump is trying to spread around, I don't know, some new disease or something. You're the ones that are using that term. How is that helping your base? Now all of a sudden Nancy Pelosi has to defend the fact that you don't want these individuals here. Why? Because they're going to be a threat? Well, why are they a threat? They're going to cause a problem? Why would they cause a problem? Do you understand? This is such a terrible, terrible response, and it's such an easy game to play. 7:50, hit this break, be right back.
We should. Why?
There is breaking news on immigration right now, perhaps with a twist on it that we've never really experienced or heard about before. The Washington Post has it. It's just been posted. Quoting now from the lead, White House official. What do you make of this idea?
Well, my first reaction was, huh? Really? The idea of using these human beings as a kind of pestilence to spread around the country. It is so grotesque. You took the words right out of my mouth when you said, these are human beings, and to treat them like a form of plague that you want to impose on your enemies is really grotesque. Now, are so kind of
idea. Boot and Jeff Toobin. Jeff Toobin, what do you make of this idea? Max Boot and Jeff Toobin. Jeff Toobin, very much. Steve Cortez is back with us, along with Max Boot and Jeff Toobin.
Wow.
Stephen A. said that every black person in America should vote Republican for at least one election. Stephen A. Smith is joining me now. Stephen, who are you trying to send a message to? Republicans, Democrats, African Americans, all of the above?
I'd go with all of the above. That sounds about right, but specifically the Democratic Party, from the standpoint that I definitely believe that the black vote has been taken for granted. And primarily the black community is at fault, in my estimation, in that regard, simply because on one hand, we're giving one party our vote because they've successfully gone about the business of convincing our community that the other party, the Republican Party, is completely against the interest of the black community. And as a result, we've been very transparent in our support. We've voted hook, line, and sinker. We look at the Republican Party. I'm not talking about every single one of us, of course, but vast majority of black Americans look at the Republican Party as the enemy. We look at the Democratic Party, even tacitly, as our support base, and as a result, we are very transparent in our support for them. So because of it, they have a license to take us for granted. The Republican Party has a license to summarily dismiss us because they believe they'll never get our vote anyway. And then we end up finding ourselves devoid of any kind of representation whatsoever because nobody is really competing to garner our vote and our support. So I said what I said because I wanted folks in my community to stand up and recognize that if you go to a house or you go buy a car or whatever the case may be, you don't just see something you want and say, I want that. Tell me what the price is and I'll pay for it. Somebody has to flat.
I mean, that's not a bad argument, right?
Jeez. Democrats don't have to work for it because they know we already have it. Republicans don't have to work for the black vote because they know they'll never get it. Golly. $7:54 in the morning.
Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So Trump kind of calls Democrats bluff here and says, oh, look, okay, we got a situation going on with the immigrants. You know, we can go over statistics all day long if you want to and say that this is a situation that has been dramatically, exponentially increased during my administration. Now, whether you agree with that or not is not important right now. It's just a simple fact. I think, hopefully all Democrats would agree with that as well, too, what I just said. The immigrant situations, primarily from 3 different countries, have been on an exponential rise since Trump took over. It started, let's be frank, it started about a year before he took over. Now, he's dealing with the repercussions of that currently. Look, even Vox says this, okay? It's statistics. You can't, facts don't care about your feelings, right? Okay, so let's move past that. For the Democrats that don't want to move past that, I can't deal with you. I'm sorry. If you're a Democrat right now that says that this is a manufactured crisis, as we've heard from the Jake Tappers, have we heard from the Jim Acostas, that this is not a real situation, it's not anything worthy of actually paying attention to, well, then you kind of just answered my question, didn't you? If it's a manufactured crisis and we don't have to deal with the statistical increase of illegal immigration coming to this country, then fine. You shouldn't have a problem with Trump's proposal. What, do you have a principled problem? Now all of a sudden you have a problem with what's legal and what's illegal? Come on, bro. Come on. Seriously. No, I'm seriously. Have a conversation with me. Anybody from CNN, have a conversation with me. If this is a manufactured crisis, now you're totally relying upon that Trump is pitching something that's illegal, which we don't even know the situation, whether it's legal or not. I'm not even trying to deal in that realm. But if now CNN, Jim Acosta and the like, you're going to come at me and start pitching about something can't be done or shouldn't be done because it's somehow illegal for Trump to arbitrarily choose, or let's say it's for a political purpose, to choose to ship immigrants to sanctuary cities, I don't know, to get back at his Democrat rivals, that should be illegal. Maybe it is. Oh, maybe it is. But now all of a sudden you want to have a conversation on legal grounds? Come on. Come on. It's nonsense. So Trump obviously knows he's setting up a situation where there's only one of two responses. One of two responses. You either say, okay, let's take on all illegal immigrants in our sanctuary cities, because after all, that's what sanctuary cities are for, which nobody is going to say. Trump knew that ahead of time, clearly. Nobody is going to make that argument, at least on face value. No one's going to make that argument in front of a microphone, because that's what Republicans have been claiming that Democrats are trying to do for 5 years now, if not longer, certainly since Trump took over. That has been the Republican warning. No Democrat's going to come out there and affirm the Republican conspiracy theory. Are you kidding me? This logical conundrum that they're stuck in right now is so beautiful to watch and so simple to explain away if you want to. You can't confirm the Republican conspiracy theory that you're actually trying to manipulate the status quo. So what do you have to do on the back end? You have to say you don't want them. Well, how in the world are you going to defend not wanting them? You have to explain it as some kind of problem. And there you have the bigger problem. If you try and rely upon the illegality aspect of it, no one's going to take you seriously because you've never been serious about it before. It's a boy that cries wolf situation. Now, the only thing you are left with is to somehow describe why it would be a problem to take an overwhelming amount of illegal immigrants into your sanctuary city. You're going to try and paint Trump as a xenophobe again? So? I'm not saying it's correct, but how is that a good talking point for you? Is that furthering your argument? Like people don't already think Trump's a xenophobe? He's even more of a xenophobe today than he was yesterday. Okay. That explains why you don't want people in your city? Because Trump's a xenophobe? 7:58. Hit this break. Be right back.
When you drive onto the lot at Fox Toyota, there's a welcome sign without there being a welcome sign. You just know you're welcome. Test drive one of the new vehicles today on the lot at Fox Toyota and be treated like family. Family owned and operated for decades. Fox Toyota, exit 122 off I-75 North, or call them toll free 844-818-0255. Check out their website at foxtoyotaclinton.com. That's foxtoyotaclinton.com.
It's Dave Ramsey joining me weekday afternoons live at 2 on Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760 WETR, Knoxville's talk you can trust.
Become President Buttigieg? I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
You and I have the chance to...
Sorry, y'all didn't hear any of that. I thought the Mevo mic was on. Here's again Stephen A. Smith making the argument. This is back in 2010, but it's oddly relevant again for today. Stephen A. Smith, the guy on ESPN, he's one of the more prolific or well-known sports commentators in the arena right now. He's making the argument that Democrats don't have to pay attention to the African-American plight or the concerns of African-Americans or, I don't know, garnering the vote of African-Americans in any serious way because they know they already have that vote locked up. And he said Republicans don't have to take African-American vote seriously because they know they're never going to get that vote. So Stephen A. Smith's contention is vote Republican for a little while because they've become entirely convinced that they can't win our vote anyways. Maybe they'll actually listen to us. Democrats don't have to fight for it because they already got it. Republicans won't fight for it because they know they're not going to get it. So where does that leave the African-American vote? Interesting concept.
Weeknights on CNN.
Are you getting ready to say something blasphemous here?
I don't know. I'm just going to answer truthfully like I always do. Nobody's scared. Nobody's scared. Well, I just think, when it comes to the Democratic Party, I think that they've taken the black vote for granted for quite some time. I'm not in a position the way you guys are, in terms of really dissecting policy the way that you do on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, when I see what transpires in our community, I think the biggest impediment to the growth of our community is the fact that, we don't force people to flatter us. We don't sit back and say, you know what, I'm not going to just give my vote to the Democratic Party. I want to stand by as an individual with individual opinions. I want to see what you're offering if you're the Republican Party. I want to see what you're offering if you're the Democratic Party. And I want to gauge what's in my best interest. The black community has not done that for decades, since the days of Barry Goldwater, for crying out loud. Well, Lyndon B. Johnson, we haven't done it. Theoretically speaking, what I'm saying is when we look at the Democrats and some of the things that they propose, it absolutely sounds marvelous. It sounds like their heart is in the right place or whatever.
All right, so we got to deal here.
But there is such thing as execution. And when you seem inept in executing something, that is a problem. When you look at education, you've contributed money to the education, but I'm from Hollis, Queens, New York City. It's about 20 miles from here. Let me tell you something right now. I went to Thomas Edison High School. It was a very good high school, but there's a lot of high schools that weren't nearly as good. It's rife with African Americans who suffered in the education realm. You look at the job market right now. It's not an accident that the unemployment rate in the African American community is practically double that of the white community. Because why? There are things that haven't been addressed. People need jobs. People need opportunity. But more importantly, you can't always be about, well, we're giving and giving and giving. Really, are you sure that you're doing that? Because if you're throwing money into an empty well, what good is it doing us as a community?
I agree with you on almost everything you've said. Well, the results have not been there, but I can tell you the agenda from President Clinton, from President Obama, is the agenda to create that opportunity. The agenda from President Reagan, from President Bush, and then President Bush has been to destroy the creation of that opportunity. Well, because that's why I agree with you.
Listen, what I'm saying to you is this. I'm certainly not going to sit up here and defend a bunch of conservatives. Obviously, you sit there and you look at some of the things that they propose. You've obviously got to be sensitive to that as an African American. But at the same time, who in God's name told us all that the Republicans are evil and the Democrats are angels? Excuse me, last time I checked, they're all on Capitol Hill. They're all in a muck and mire together, selling us a bag of worms, and it ain't working. The reality is simply this. We have to reach a point in the African American community. I'm looking at you. When you were in office, I sat there and I looked at this guy and I said, you know what? He knows what the hell he's talking about. That's right. Period. And I didn't sit there going, well, he's a Democrat. Let me automatically give him a vote. I want nothing in return. That's the whole point. The fact is, the African American, you can look at Social Security. Look at something like Social Security. They talk about the average African American is dying by the age of 55. So that means we're not collecting Social Security, but they're taking money out of our paychecks every week. I'm sorry, how are we benefiting from that? These are legitimate questions.
Stephen, do you have these conversations with your listeners?
Oh, my Lord, I have it with my listeners. I have it with my family, and I'm the lone ranger inside my family, and I could care less. I mean, I really believe. Look, I give you an example. We talked about Charlie Rangel last time I was on here. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to bring up any negativity about Charlie Rangel, but there is a problem when you blindly support a man and you don't take into account the things. And I'm not saying that he hasn't done good, but you have to take into account the totality of what people are doing and not just blindly support folks.
It's as if I only voted for women just because they're women.
That's not good.
And that's not good.
That's not good.
But I want to come back to one particular area that we all agree to take education. Because it seems to me that President Obama, Secretary of Education Artie Duncan, raced to the top, embracing the things from Michelle Rhee's reform agenda to Joel Klein's reform agenda, getting quality teachers into the schools. All those things.
I love those ideas.
Okay. And that's
I love those ideas. But I also watched the Democrats just excoriate George W. Bush for No Child Left Behind. And basically, wait a minute, that's it. Yes, they did. And you know they did. The fact is that what he was proposing was alternatives. Now, the progressives, the liberals are supposed to be a party of choices. But how many choices were they willing to give you? What they were saying is if you support the charter schools, what that's going to do is take funding and it's going to veer it away from the public sector into the chartered sector. That may not necessarily be good, but they didn't give the African American community an opportunity to make that decision. They tried to make it for us. That's a problem.
When I was governor, no, I'm just teasing.
When we doubled the number of charter schools, New York City, which is a Democratic city, we have an independent
I'm not talking
mayor.
about you.
No. But I'm saying so that President Obama has done everything to push the agenda for choice in schools, for improving the quality of our teachers.
But you're misconstruing what I'm saying. I'm not here to lambaste the intentions of our president. What I'm talking about is when they asked me the question before I came onto the show about blacks and the African American community and the Democratic Party, it wasn't about Obama because I truly believe his heart is in the right place. I don't think he always knows the best decisions economically, and God knows the unemployment rate shows that.
Well, you fellas have used up more words in this little segment than I used in about a week.
The man asked me a question. I gave an answer.
Let me just ask you a simple question. Why do you think Republicans have such a hard time attracting African Americans?
Because their messages have been god-awful. Their messages have improved somewhat. And dare I say, by talk radio, as bad, as sad as that is to say, it's actually true. You can't find a Republican that looks even remotely comfortable to walk into the black communities throughout the United States of America and send and make sure their message resonates.
Why aren't there any African Americans in the Tea Party?
Well, I do believe there are some African Americans in the Tea Party, and I'm not here to disrespect or insult the Tea Party in any way. They're for lower taxes and less government intervention, and I respect that. And even though we may disagree on some things, I do think that their message resonated. There's a reason Democrats lost 63 seats in the House, 6 in the Senate. It's because there's a group of into the black communities throughout the United States.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Real News. My name is Mr. Henry. The program you're listening to right now is hosted by me. I speak for a living here. Whoa, what's going on? Oh, that's my that's my Facebook volume. Hey, speaking of Facebook, just type in Real News Radio to your Facebook search bar. Love interacting with the comments there. There's a bunch of comments, some pertaining to this federal vaccine march that's going on. On Wednesday, we have Kelly from Facebook coming and talk about that. More on that later. Some of the comments are dealing directly with what I'm talking about today. 865-888-TALK. By the way, that's 865-888-8255. 865-888-8255. That's the Crown Plaza call number if you have a comment on anything we're talking about today. Don't forget about our app. Just type in Talk Radio 92.3 Knoxville. Talk Radio 92.3 Knoxville. Usually the first and only thing that comes up. My favorite way to listen to programming on 90. Hey, man, 92.3 at AM 760. There's only two of us around here, okay? So we all are very clear about the one you should be listening to.
Only us!
Yes, I mean, If you want political talk radio, yeah, that's true. I would say so.
Tune into 92.3.
Sometimes you make these Freudian slips on air, and it's purposeful. Anyway,
Live radio.
Yeah, that's right. So Crown Plaza call number, like I said, it's 888-8255. Throw an 865 in front of that. Before I get to Charlotte here, let me just say, what we're talking about, obviously, is Trump's proposal to send illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities, exclusively sanctuary cities, for what some are saying, even Trump might be saying, who knows, to sort of get back at his Democrat, rivals. And here's the problem. Here's the problem that the mainstream drive-bys, as Rush calls them, the Democrat-led media, I don't know, even Fox News to some extent. They take Trump seriously every time he says something. Well, Mr. Henry, he's the president of the United States. You have to take him seriously. Exactly. This is the situation that Trump is exploiting. The mainstream media, the drive-bys as Trump calls them, does not have the luxury of recognizing and articulating that they recognize when Trump is playing a rhetorical game. And that's all that Trump's doing right now. But they don't have the luxury to call that for what it is. You want a good Democrat strategist? You want a good Democrat response, you do this right here. Let me just put it out there for you. Any Democrat that so happens to be listening, you do this. You say exactly what I've said. You say, Trump doesn't actually want illegal immigrants going to sanctuary cities. That's what he's trying to fight against. We get this, right? Republicans in general are actively trying to fight against this. Moreover, Republicans have been telling us ever since Trump took office, the reason why we have an increase in immigration is because there's been an orchestrated effort on behalf of somebody, I don't know, George Soros or whoever, to funnel these individuals. What, a 350% increase over a 3-year period from 3 countries alone? Republicans have been telling us for at least 3 years that is a very clearly orchestrated. The president of Guatemala and Honduras have been telling us that is a very clear orchestrated effort on behalf of somebody. Republicans in the Trump administration have been saying that's what they're trying to shut down. They specifically do not want illegal immigrants, not only in this country, but especially they don't want them in sanctuary cities. You send them to Tennessee, we're going to do as much as we possibly can to make sure they're on the books, that they're vetted. If they're supposed to be here, then they are here. They don't want them going to sanctuary cities. This is what the Democrat response should be. You say Trump's not being serious. He's trying to play a rhetorical game. He's trying to get us forced to answer this question. But you can't do that, can you? No, you can't do that. Because the mainstream media, because of the Russia collusion hoax, because of everything else they've been setting up so far, because any time anybody has said, if there's a janitor walking by a closed-door meeting that thinks he heard something salacious, they will quote that at CNN and say, somebody familiar with the communication. Somebody familiar with the line of thinking of Stephen Miller. They will quote an anonymous source just to prove a point. And goodness gracious, of course they're going to quote the president himself. Are you kidding me? They do not have the luxury of acknowledging when Trump is playing a rhetorical game. Trump realizes that, and he's exploiting that. Trump doesn't genuinely want people, illegal immigrants, funneled directly into sanctuary cities. That is antithetical to his entire pitch. He's forcing Democrats to go on the books to respond. And they're willfully ignorant of what's actually going on or have the inability to respond properly. So much so that Cher, yes, that's Cher, Cher now has come out with this tweet. This is as of April 14th. What's the day? The 15th. So this was yesterday. Cher sent this out. I understand helping struggling immigrants, but my city, Los Angeles, isn't taking care of its own. What about the 50,000 plus U.S. citizens who live on the streets? People who live below the poverty line and are hungry. If my state can't take care of its own, many of them are vets, how can they take care of more? Exactly, Cher! Exactly! Yes, exactly! Now all of a sudden, Cher and Kanye West and Cardi B are Republicans. Look, you may call Trump a moron. I get it, okay? That's fine. You may say he's sophomoric. You might say he's a little bit, he plays in the world of hyperbole too much. He's somewhat boorish on his tweets. Fine. But anybody that can get Cher to tweet a Republican talking point. I swear to you, this looks like Tucker Carlson has just tweeted this. Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro lives in L.A. This looks like a tweet from Ben Shapiro. Anybody that can force Cher to tweet something that may as well have come from the Daily Wire, you know what I'm saying, man? I'm not saying he's the smartest guy in the room. I'm just saying he might be able to manipulate a bit better than yours can. It's fascinating to watch is all. Roz, we got a call in line too there. And if for nothing else, okay, one more time, I would sincerely hope that even those that don't like Trump being president, don't like the tactics that he's playing, one thing you will have to give the man credit for, he's forcing us to have these conversations that we were not able to have before. We just simply were not able to even ask this question, yet even play out these situations on a real level. Let's go to Charlotte. She's been hanging on for a while. Charlotte, thanks for hanging on so long. What's on your mind?
Good morning, 92.3.
Yeah, that's right.
To your point, there's some Dems already getting excited that with Trump putting this out, that he's ruined his argument that we're full and we have no place to put him, because if we can put him in sanctuary cities, we're obviously not full. So, and I'm like, they're believing it. They're buying it hook, line, and sinker.
Right.
I have two questions. The one you just talked over as far as the sanctuary cities having giving them the right to vote because if they're citizens of the city, that they're automatically able to vote for federal elections. Is that possible?
No, the actual illegal immigrants themselves, say the individual going and casting a ballot. Now, practically speaking, I'll say, look, who knows how this works out, okay? Practically speaking, in California and other states across the United States, I know a lot of the times all you have to do is cite an address of the place of employment you have. That's how they get away with a lot of the stuff of busing people across state lines. So don't take my answer to mean anything in the pragmatic realm. It's not. What I'm saying is philosophically what it's supposed to be. Since 1996, I know for sure it's been illegal for illegal immigrants to vote at a federal level. Now, prior to that, people just thought it should have been, but it's at least been codified for sure since 96. At the state level, I think the last state to pass that it was illegal for an illegal immigrant or a non-citizen to vote was 1927, 1926, I think was the last state to pass that. So most of the conception would be, well, most states already have this codified that you can't vote. So the federal government finally caught up in 96 and said you can't vote. So the actual application of illegals going to vote, that should be illegal. Whether that's happening or not, I don't know. The Supreme Court doesn't buy into it. But what I'm saying is not necessarily an individual going to pull a tab, so to speak. It's about when the census comes out. If you allow a non-citizen to claim that they are represented by that city, therefore they need representation, all of a sudden you have someone like San Francisco 15 years ago, their population increases by, 100,000, a million, I don't know what the numbers are. The point being is, what percentage of that increase are non-citizens? They shouldn't be counted, frankly speaking. But if they are counted, then all of a sudden you're going to get a situation where they get more electoral college votes, they get more House representation, as should be the case. As should be the case if you're talking about the modulation of American citizens, all right? If half of Alabama's citizens just up and move to San Francisco for some odd reason, I don't know why they would, but let's say they do, well then yeah, Alabama deserves to lose House representation, okay? That's the way that the House works out. But in this situation, we're counting non-American citizens to make it so that Alabama is losing a House seat to California, who is claiming people that are not exactly American citizens. That, in my mind, is the long con game, or so told by me, the constitutional expert from California we had on.
So then that gives an excellent opportunity for them to crack down on illegal voting, because they should definitely put something in that even if your city allows you to vote, that you cannot vote otherwise, and make that issue a card and show a card, and they're not going to want to do that. I have a bigger question for you, though, and you might have to answer this later on for me. Do you know exactly when you become an American citizen?
Well, I mean, if you're obviously born here, then I suppose Supreme Court interpretation through 13th, 14th, and 15th would claim that the day that you're birthed on soil. Now, depending on if you're birthed in Virginia or if you're birthed in Tennessee, some might have a difference as to when that week actually is. As far as, say, if you're going through your citizenship process, goodness, I mean, contextually speaking, would have to have a lot more information as to are you seeking some type of visa lottery status? Are you here just on a temporary visa? yourself, or I don't know, say some type of business related, or a student, or if you're actually seeking a green card per se of trying to become a permanent citizen, you can sort of expedite that process. I've heard by I don't know, let's say your husband or your wife is an American citizen, all right, or some immediate familial representation. If you're just going through the normal process, look, I've heard everything from as short as 5 years to as long as 20 years. It takes sometimes, and a lot of that has to do with money. A lot of that has to do with proper attorneys. A lot of that has to do with passing the test. I mean, it's a long-winded question that may need more context, and it may need more research on my behalf too. But go ahead.
But we have exact time of death. We have the pronounced you man and wife. We have points in time when things become legal, and you're adhered to by different laws. And so the right to life and happiness, or the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's a right to an American citizen, right?
Oh sure. I mean,
okay. So the baby's being born, and then put off to the side and decided later. Wouldn't that be constitutionally against the law?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, if you get far enough back, and this is a conversation that I'll take up an entire hour worth of time, because a lot of people are going to disagree with me about this, but if you get back far enough into Supreme Court interpretation, constitutional interpretation, they would say that, look, because our rights do not extend to us from the federal government, i.e. they extend to us from our creator, that the Constitution itself and the Bill of Rights was just meant to tell the federal government, this is what you cannot do, because you do not have the power to remove these rights from individuals, not just American citizens, but individuals. With that being said, a lot of the constitutional interpretation is to the effect of even non-citizens, to some effect. There's a very wide breadth of legal terminology, but to some extent, constitutional interpretation would say that the constitutional rights, Bill of Rights, do extend even to non-American citizens. Now, again,
we don't have the right to kill them.
Well, exactly, right? And, even Obama got into major portions of trouble from this when he was, let's be frank, just killing American citizens, not just without, legitimate evidence or due process. I mean, we're talking not even habeas corpus, okay? You don't get your day in court and you just get bombed instead. How many times did you do that, Real News audience? I know at least one or two I can cite at the top of my head. It might even been more than that, but we got to hit this break. I'll give you the last 30 seconds here, though, Charlotte.
Oh, I just appreciate that because, I mean, for everything that I can cite as far as knowing when it happens, this ambiguity as far as when you become a citizen is just, it blows my mind.
Oh, I hear you. Charlotte, thanks so much for the call. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
There goes Charlotte, 821. Hit this break, come back with CNN saying apparently that, hey, illegal immigrants, man, they're like a plague on society apparently. That's their words. 821, be right back.
When we think about sanctuary cities, we tend to imagine, depending on our political view, either lawless cesspools where federal law is utterly ignored.
Pretty much the definition of anarchy.
Human sacrifices, rapes, murders.
Satan worshippers. American lives are being lost.
They are breaking the law. They are harboring fugitives. This is absolutely nuts.
Or havens for one of the nation's most marginalized groups.
You are safe in Chicago.
This is about human beings, families.
We will continue to be a place of refuge.
But in reality, neither of those descriptions quite fit. To understand why, you have to put yourself in the shoes of a local police officer. First, what are sanctuary cities? They're cities and counties in the U.S. that limit their cooperation with immigration enforcement, which falls under federal jurisdiction. These policies are different in different places. In Chicago, it means city employees aren't supposed to share residence immigration status with other people. In Washington, D.C., it means police officers are barred from asking residents about their immigration status. But often, it comes down to this. How does a local police officer handle an unauthorized immigrant that he's already arrested for some other reason?
Yeah, exactly, Eric. I mean, that's one of the bigger questions that's being pushed here. Are Dems actually against sanctuary cities now? I mean, the bigger question, too, is, okay, I feel like all Trump is really trying to say is, all right, let's be for real here. Y'all want to play a ridiculous game? You want to be as petty as possible? Let's be as petty as possible, okay? I'll play your petty game. If it means we can forcibly get past the petty nature of these games and actually force Congress to do something, which they're not going to do. But if you can force Democrats to finally respond to, okay, are we actually for sanctuary cities? If you can force Cher to tweet out that she's apparently not for sanctuary cities, if you can make a lot of Democrats all of a sudden start to sound anything like a Republican, now maybe we can have a conversation about what these similarities used to be just 3 years ago. Honestly, to some extent, I feel like that's Trump is all he's trying to do. All he's trying to do is force all of us to look back just 3 or 4 years ago and say, do we remember when Obama said these same things? I mean, literally, the exact, I'm not even saying paraphrasing, I'm saying the exact same language that Trump is using now was used verbatim by Clinton and Obama. Can we at least just go back to that? Can we start there? And if we can't, then Democrats are going to have to admit that, no, maybe we should be concerned about our own first. Here's the other interesting question, too. If you really want to play out the sanctuary city game, all right, let's say Democrats get their way. Let's say Pete Buttigieg wins the presidency. Let's say Swalwell, this is a better example, wins the presidency, and he wants to start repealing the Second Amendment. Are they going to have a problem with sanctuary cities in Tennessee not enforcing that rule? You know what I'm saying? Let's say they have a buyback program. Local law enforcement in Tennessee just refuses to do it. How do you feel about that sanctuary city?
People are dead.
Oh yeah, the numbing.
8:25 in the morning. Welcome back to Real News. Man, I'm telling you, maybe I should just stop this political punditry thing. Maybe I should just stop Real News. I'm telling you, if I want to make a legitimate living for myself. Hey, Gabi, you listening to me right now? My love? That's what I call her. If you want to know a little bit about me, I call her love. Hey, lovely. You listen to me right now? You want me to provide? You want to live in a mansion? This is what I should do. I should just go become a Democrat strategist. Seriously, man. I mean, it's that easy now. Plus, I have the advantage of understanding what the tactics are on the right, so I could just start pitching them to the left. But look, Eric just said on Facebook a second ago, so Dems are now against sanctuary cities. Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, this is the game that Trump's trying to play. This is what he's trying to pitch. And honestly, to some extent, too, I truly believe that all Trump is actually, one more time. I want to say it enough times so I'm not ever taken out of context on this program, on air, whatever else. Trump is not genuinely wanting to consider shipping all the illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities. He's not. That is specifically what Republicans are against. That is antithetical to his entire pitch for the Republican base. If we want anything, it's to not send them to sanctuary cities. That's the point. Now, here's the other situation the Democrats aren't thinking about right now either. Eric says, okay, so it's forcing Democrats to consider whether they want to support sanctuary cities. Kelly said, yeah, you can get into lobbying like your buddy. Yeah, I could do that. Here's the other thing that Democrats aren't looking out for right now. And I don't know how they're missing this one, because Democrats always seem to be the one about, like, what about if a Republican president sets some precedent for something going forward? All right, let's say that Democrats want to turn the switch. Let's say somebody out there gets the bright idea to actually call Trump's bluff. Okay, Trump calls a bluff and then they call his bluff, right? We're working on this crazy political poker game going on now. No, you call my bluff, I'm going to call your bluff now. Let's let everybody call each other's bluff, and I'm not sure what weird fabricated reality we're existing in now, but whatever. Let's say they call his bluff. Let's say you have a large swath of Democrat representation saying, you know what, send them to my city, I don't care. We're sanctuary cities, we don't have to enforce federal law. Cool. Now here's the problem you got. This article that I brought up at the beginning of the show. This guy, on CNN's State of the Union, Representative Eric Swalwell, he's a Democrat from California, he's a 2020 presidential hopeful, he says the Second Amendment is not an absolute right. He's been on MSNBC before, and even Fox News to his credit, talking about a gun buyback program. Okay. Now we're talking about the precedent being set. This is why I'm saying some Democrat come hire me. Come hire me right now for your campaign. I'll give you the first 3 months for free, all right? Now you're talking about a situation where, let's say we, at a federal level, trying to force some gun buyback program. What in the world are Democrats going to do if Republicans start playing the same similar sanctuary city game with the Second Amendment? You hear me? Okay, fine. Chicago's going to give up their guns? Yeah. Yeah, some citizens of Chicago are going to give up their guns. The ones that abide by the law, they're going to give up the guns. But what are you going to do when Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, possibly South Carolina? What if all these southeastern states just refuse to enforce your federal law, I mean? What are you going to do? You're refusing to enforce the federal law right now, as is your right. That's fine. The Supreme Court says you don't have to enforce this federal law if you don't want to. Now, you have to deal with the repercussions. And I'm using this as an analogy right now because this is actually happening in some Republican counties. Now, the same legal standard gets a little bit wonky here because you have some Republican-held counties that are refusing to enforce state law. It's not the same thing. They're refusing to enforce state law right now for the situation where the age used to be 18 years old. I don't know in what states these are. Let's say Wyoming. I don't know if it's one. But in some of these states, it used to be 18 to buy a firearm. They raised that to 21. So that weird in-between of those that bought at 18 that are now 19 or 20, what do you do with them? Well, you have to go get their guns back. Some county sheriffs have said, I'm not going to enforce that law. Again, the same legal standard, I believe, doesn't apply from state level down to county level, but it would apply from federal down to state level. You following me? Now, what's the Democrat response going to be? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Tennessee's problem is quickly going to become Virginia's problem because what if they don't give up their guns in Tennessee, that problem might bleed over into Virginia. Exactly. You hear what Republicans are saying now? Do you think the California problem is not going to eventually bleed over into surrounding states with this illegal immigrant thing? This has much more to do with overarching political philosophy. Today we're talking about the illegal immigrant problem, and I believe all Eric is saying as well too is, look, man, and this is what Trump is saying, can we just have a conversation that started 3 years ago? All right, just 3 years ago, Barack Obama was using, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm not trying to be bombastic here, Obama was using literally the exact same terminology that Donald Trump is using right now. The exact same. And we all used to agree upon it then. Republicans even used to agree with Obama. On the few things we did agree with Obama about, it was when he was saying those things. We're a nation of laws. We're also a nation of immigrants, but we must enforce our laws. Exactly what Trump is saying. Trump's just asking if we get back to that point. 8:31, hit this break. Be back with Ray's call.
On CNN.
Are you getting ready to say something blasphemous here?
I don't know. I'm just going to answer truthfully like I always do. Nobody's scared. Nobody's scared. Well, I just think, when it comes to the Democratic Party, I think that they've taken the black vote for granted for quite some time. I'm not in a position the way you guys are, in terms of really dissecting policy the way that you do on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, when I see what transpires in our community, I think the biggest impediment to the growth of our community is the fact that, we don't force people to flatter us. We don't sit back and say, you know what, I'm not going to just give my vote to the Democratic Party. I want to stand by as an individual with individual opinions. I want to see what you're offering if you're the Republican Party. I want to see what you're offering if you're the Democratic Party. And I want to gauge what's in my best interest. The black community has not done that for decades, since the days of Barry Goldwater, for crying out loud, or Lyndon B. Johnson. We haven't done it. Theoretically speaking, what I'm saying is when we look at the Democrats and some of the things that they propose, it absolutely sounds marvelous. It sounds like they'll
heart is in the right place or
Good.
whatever.
All right, so we got a deal here.
But there is such thing as execution. And when you seem inept in executing something, that is a problem. When you look at education, you've contributed money to the education, but I'm from Hollis, Queens, New York City. It's about 20 miles from here. Let me tell you something right now. I went to Thomas Edison High School. It was a very good high school, but there's a lot of high schools that weren't nearly as good. It's rife with African Americans who suffered in the education realm. You look at the job market right now. It's not an accident that the unemployment rate in the African American community is practically double that of the white community. Because why? There are things that haven't been addressed. People need jobs. People need opportunity. But more importantly, you can't always be about, well, we're giving and giving and giving. Really, are you sure that you're doing that? Because if you're throwing money into an empty well, what good is it doing us as a community?
I agree with you on almost everything you've said.
Well,
the results have not been there, but I can tell you the agenda from President Clinton, from President Obama, is the agenda to create that opportunity. The agenda from President Reagan, from President Bush, and then President Bush has been to destroy the creation of that opportunity.
Well,
See, that's why I agree with you.
Listen, what I'm saying to you is this. I'm certainly not going to sit up here and defend a bunch of conservatives. Obviously, you sit there and you look at some of the things that they propose. You've obviously got to be sensitive to that as an African American. But at the same time, who in God's name told us all that the Republicans are evil and the Democrats are angels? Excuse me, last time I checked, they're all on Capitol Hill. They're all in a muck and mire together, selling us a bag of worms, and it ain't working. The reality is simply this. We have to reach a point in the African American community. I'm looking at you. When you were in office, I sat there and I looked at this guy and I said, you know what? He knows what the hell he's talking about. That's right. Period. No, I didn't sit there going, well, he's a Democrat. Let me automatically give him a vote. I want nothing in return. That's the whole point. The fact is, the African American, you can look at Social Security. Look at something like Social Security. They talk about the average African American is dying by the age of 55. So that means we're not collecting Social Security, but they're taking money out of our paychecks every week. I'm sorry, how are we benefiting from that? These are legitimate questions.
Stephen, do you have these conversations with your listeners?
Oh, my Lord, I have it with my listeners. I have it with my family, and I'm the Lone Ranger inside my family, and I could care less. I mean, I really believe, look, I give you an example. We talked about Charlie Rangel last time I was on here. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to bring up any negativity about Charlie Rangel, but there is a problem when you blindly support a man and you don't take into account the things, and I'm not saying that he hasn't done good, but you have to take into account the totality of what people are doing and not just blindly support folks.
It's as if I only voted for women just because they're women.
That's not good.
And that's not good.
That's not good.
But I want to come back to one particular area that we all agree. Let's take education. Because it seems to me that President Obama, Secretary of Education Artie Duncan, raced to the top, embracing the things from Michelle Rhee's reform agenda to Joel Clark.
And Jeff Toobin, I mean, what do you make of this idea?
Well, my first reaction was, huh? I mean, really? I mean, the idea of using these human beings as a kind of pestilence to spread around the country. I mean, it is so grotesque. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth when you said, you know, these are human beings, and to treat them like a form of plague that you want to impose on your enemies is really grotesque. Now, I guess the good news we can say is that it hasn't happened, or at least it hasn't happened yet. But I think it's indicative of the attitude towards illegal immigrants or undocumented citizens, undocumented people, whatever term you want to use, as something less than human. And all I can say is I'm glad it didn't come to fruition.
Steve Cortez.
Well, my
point out, thanks very much. Steve Cortez is CNN was first to look hardliners in the White House, Stephen Miller and others, saying that they really wanted to do this, even though the White House earlier today tried to poo-poo this story, saying it wasn't really taken seriously. It was taken seriously. The General Counsel of the DHS, John Mitnick, sent the White House a legal analysis, and it basically had three parts. One was, we are not allowed to spend DH money to do this, to transport these individuals, unless it's for a clear agency-related purpose, such as providing medical care to individuals or facilities are becoming overcrowded. And the underlying message is, we can't do this for political reasons. That would be against our charter. That would be against the law. He made two other points. This would open up the agency and the U.S. government to lawsuits because you'll be denying due process to these individuals. And if you do this, the odds that these individuals do not show up for their deportation hearing are much stronger. So in other words, you'll be undermining the law
and you'll be undermining your own purpose of wanting these people to go back where they came from. I mean, it bears just sorts of wanting these people to go back where they came from.
Hey, welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen.
Breaking story here. Tim Allen. Yeah, that Tim Allen guy from Tool Time, well-known conservative out in Hollywood, he just tweeted this out. He still lives in L.A., still does a lot of his work out there. He just tweeted this out. I understand helping struggling immigrants, but my city, Los Angeles, isn't taking care of its own. What about the 50,000-plus U.S. citizens who live on the streets? People who live below the poverty line and hungry? If my state can't take care of its own, many of these are vets, how can it take care of more? This is in response to President Trump's proposal that he sends basically all the migrant caravans up to, sanctuary cities. It's Tim Allen. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's Cher. It's Cher. Oh, my goodness, it's Cher. Ross, can I get this computer going? Before I get to Ray here. All right, here's Jeffrey Tobin's response.
Back with us, along with Max Boot and Jeff Tubin.
Jeff
Tubin. I mean, what do you make of this idea?
Well, my first reaction was, huh? I mean, really? I mean, the idea of using these human beings as a kind of pestilence to spread around the country, I mean, it is so grotesque. I mean, you took the words right out.
Do you understand the logic problem I have here? If you're going to say that Trump's proposal is to use these human beings as some kind of pestilence to spread across the United States, you have to then posit why that would be a pestilence to spread. You know what I'm saying? You can't just leave that logical premise unanswered. Because in your mind, Jeffrey Tubin, it has never been a pestilence to be spread across the United States before. So one of two things is happening. You're either now agreeing with Trump's rhetoric that it is a pestilence, that they are a pestilence to be spread, that you're somehow agreeing that there is a problem, that Trump is xenophobic, or you have to explain to me why they're not some type of plague to be spread around America. You can't just throw that out there.
Out of my mouth when you said, these are human beings, and to treat them like a form of plague that you want to impose on your enemies is really grotesque. Now, I guess the good news we can say is that it hasn't happened, or at least it hasn't happened yet. But I think it's indicative of the attitude towards...
All right, now listen to this part, okay? Listen to this part. This is where, I'm telling you, this is how you have to start watching coverage. If you're going to do this thing of watching the box in front of you to get your media, this is how you have to start watching this coverage. Listen to how this argument is starting to it's getting so aggressive in nature, starting to devolve onto itself, right? Like, even the rhetoric that they've been coached into using. These talking points that are so easily thrown out there. This guy now, Jeffrey, can't figure out whether you should call them illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants. Just listen to this real quick.
Illegal immigrants or undocumented citizens, undocumented people, whatever term you want to use.
Yeah, illegal immigrants or undocumented citizens or, undocumented people. He can't figure out what he's supposed to say. You want to know why? Because illegal immigrants make sense if you don't want them to be pushed into sanctuary cities. But you can't do that if you're a Democrat. That's why he stumbled back on undocumented people. Now he has the moral component to deal with. Well, if you're going to call them undocumented immigrants, undocumented people, there is no such thing as an illegal human being, as Kirsten Gillibrand says, then you have no counter argument as to why you don't want them in your sanctuary cities. If, however, you refer to them as illegal immigrants, now you have a very clear reason as to why you don't want them in your sanctuary cities, because it's in the definition of the title. Illegal. We need to figure out a legal way first, and then we can figure out the sanctuary city after that, but you wouldn't need a sanctuary city if they're already legal, would you? Because there's nothing to them. Where would you be providing sanctuary from? You understand how confusing this is to them? I don't know whether to call them an undocumented human being, because if I call them an undocumented human being, then I have no argument as to why I shouldn't want them in my city. But clearly, I don't want them in my city because Cher's telling me right now that we can't even deal with our own situation, let alone with more. I mean, Cher, I don't know. She's not like an executive. She's not an elected representative, but she certainly is a sense of the voice of the people. Oh no! So I can't play out this moral argument because if I try and play out the moral side, now I have no argument against Sanctuary City. But if I say they're illegal immigrants, now all of a sudden I'm a Republican. What do I do? You have the conversation. And then you get Anderson Cooper at minute 7:20 in this interview on CNN to somehow admit this.
I mean, it bears just sort of stepping back for a moment and pointing out, I mean, we're talking about human beings here loaded onto buses and sent far away to random places for political purposes to punish Democrats. To think that that's an actual serious consideration is incredible from this White House.
Exactly, Anderson! Exactly! One more time. Do you understand the beauty behind what Trump's doing? I don't need you to buy into the idea that Trump's playing this beautiful version of 3D chess. It could just be political checkers. Anderson Cooper just articulated the Republican conspiracy theory. Just switch Republican for Democrat. That's exactly what he just did. Somehow, President Trump has forced Anderson Cooper to acknowledge the fear of Republicans for at least the last 3 years. Listen to this.
Go back where they came from. I mean, it bears just sort of stepping back for a moment and pointing out, I mean, we're talking about human beings here loaded onto buses and sent far away to random places for political purposes to punish Democrats. To think that
you're talking about human beings put on buses in Honduras, Guatemala, and Ecuador, sent to random places through Mexico, having to fight people along the way, getting shut down at border security the entire way for alleged political reasons. I mean, are you following along? No, not for a second do I think Trump is actually seriously considering playing the Democrat game, but he is being serious about rolling out the same rhetoric so Democrats can finally be forced to deal with, oh, okay, all right, maybe I see it. Maybe I see it, okay? If Republicans think that's what Democrats are doing, we certainly don't like it when Republicans try and do it to us. Anderson Cooper just laid out the exact thing Republicans have been saying is happening from South America through Central America into the United States. He just switched it from once they're in the United States, now we're going to the sanctuary cities. Let's go to Ray. He's been hanging on the longest here. Ray, thanks for hanging on, buddy. I'll give you a few more minutes, so try not to even interrupt. What's on your mind, buddy?
No. Oh, please interrupt, Don. I love this show. But first off, kudos to Roz. Anybody needs help with their future, go to Roz's Real News bumper list, make a playlist of that, play it. You got your work cut out for you. It's just fabulous stuff. But I'll listen to Real News for what's breaking. And, man, you are cutting edge on this. You are so close that you could reach out and grab it. To have Cher come on your news channel and actually do President Trump's work for him is the most amazing show of my life. This is just great. Nobody has to do anything but listen to them talk now because the logical gap has been opened up.
Yes.
How all these illegal immigrants have Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren, they have Chuck Schumer living inside them, and now they see it.
Ray, dude, I think that's the best. Honestly, I don't say this lightly. I think that's probably the best point of this this entire morning show. What's really to be taken away from this is Republicans don't even have to argue anymore, do we? We don't even have to say anything anymore. Just let Trump throw that weird spin out there and just listen to the Democrats respond and make the argument for us. It's beautiful.
Yes, it is. I don't see how an illegal immigrant, however they get to vote, or even the legal immigrants who are in support of this invasion because they need some more of their family members to live with them, for whatever reason, I do not see how they could support Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco from 2020. I just don't see it.
And there's honestly, Ray, there is no win here unless you just straight agree with Trump. There is no win.
Right. Right.
There is no win,
That
man.
is beautiful.
Hey, because hey,
That
look,
is-
if you try and play out the situation, like, look, okay, there has been a few. Let's be fair here, okay. Let's see, we have. Hang on here. Okay, yeah, Democrats across the country, mayors, New York City's mayors, Bill De Blasio, and Oakland, California Mayor Libby Schaaf. They apparently have said, yeah, we're welcome to bringing illegal immigrants across the borders. You want to know the approval for those type of statements, bro? It's like single digits. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Your own constituent base is saying no. Absolutely not. I don't want that. I don't want to deal with it at my own front doorstep. At least when I'm posed the question, do I have to deal with this? Just let the Democrats respond for us.
Yes, it's such a breath of fresh air to have our president kind of release that 3D chess game. That you're right. This is so simple. This is the basic doing the opposite of what the other does, and then all of a sudden the other person is doing your work for you. This is fabulous. Yes. This is just a great day.
Ray, I appreciate the call, buddy.
You're welcome. Bye.
Hey, there goes Ray. I honestly, I do think that's one of the best points in the morning. I've been dancing around that a little bit, but that's really what we're talking about now, is it not? Look, man, it's a cool time to live in. When I don't even have to come in here and make the argument. I can just play clips from... That's all I've been doing. I can play clips from Democrats now to prove my Republican talking point. It's pretty awesome. 8:49 in the morning, hit this break, be right back.
Yes, that's what Cher's singing right now. Shimmy, she sent that tweet out. Oh no! If I can figure out how to turn back time and not send that tweet out. Oh my goodness. Wow. Golly. Man, this comment feed and that share tweet is so good. Listen to this one. Hi, Cher. This is, again, responding to what Cher said. She said, I understand helping struggling immigrants, but my city, Los Angeles, isn't taking care of its own. What about the 50,000 plus citizens who live on the streets, people who live below poverty line and are hungry? If my state can't take care of many of its own, many are vets, how can they take care of any more? Someone responds by saying, hi, Cher. In all seriousness, I know that you detest Donald Trump, and that's your choice. But this tweet from you is so good and so true. All Trump supporters are trying to say is that we need to take care of our own people first. Take care of our own poor and suffering first. This is beautiful too. Apparently Cher tweeted this out in 2017. It's why I don't like doing social media. Cher tweeted this out in 2017. Those who can must take a dreamer into their homes and protect them. I'm ready to do this and pray others in my business will do the same. Hashtag sanctuary. Whoops. Oh, man. How quickly we change. Not even 2 years later. Oh, my gosh. Oh.
calling me right now.
I'm about to be.
Do you have a charger for your Mac?
Yeah.
By chance, a cord?
I
Because
don't know
mine's
if it,
dead.
I don't
Is
know
it
if it
like
worked
the
with
bigger
yours.
one?
No, it's that one.
Nah, that isn't it. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey, that song that Roz went out with before. You want to know what that song's about? Cher actually got into a time machine, went forward, and then went backward a little bit, and she saw this tweet that she sent out from September 5th, 2017. This is Cher's own tweet from her own Twitter account. I promise, man. I love doing shows on days like today. I can't make this stuff up. This is Cher's personal Twitter account on September 5th of 2017. Quote, "Those who can must take a dreamer into their home and protect them. I'm ready to do this and pray others in my business will do the same. Hashtag sanctuary." Uh-oh. If I could turn back time, I wouldn't have sent that tweet out. You kidding me? Okay, Cher. So give it 2 years, and when the president finally puts you on paper, trying to force you to do what you promised to do 2 years ago. Uh-oh. If I could turn back. Let's go to David. He's talking about Cher's tweet. David, thanks for hanging on. About 4 minutes left here. What's on your mind, sir?
Hey, good morning. I'll be quick. About Cher's tweet. I mean, everybody's having, reacting to this like Hillary Clinton said, I know why I lost, it's because I suck. I think we can assume, I mean, I woke up early this morning, as I always do, and the first thing I hear is about her tweet. And then I turn on the radio a couple of times and I hear it again. I think it's safe to say that Cher will not be awake and slip on her fresh pair of Depends until about 3 o'clock our time.
Probably, right.
And at that time, she's going to realize, holy crap, what did I say?
Exactly.
And she will issue a restatement saying what I meant was, and it goes on from there because, this is just too much. I mean, to think that this old broad, and by the way, I had sent a tweet out about a month ago calling her an old broad and got suspended from Twitter. and my life has been far more pleasant since I got suspended from Twitter.
That's funny, dude.
But at any rate, I think we got to, kind of dial back this Twitter, Cher, ain't she just awesome rhetoric, because she ain't awesome.
Oh, no, and David, don't get me wrong. I totally agree with you here, too. To point this out is not to point out that Cher all of a sudden has woken up. This is not sort of a platonic analogy where she's finally exiting the cave. Of course not. No, I think she got caught up in a logic game. Do you get what I'm saying? I think it's exactly what you're talking about, right? She got caught up in something that finally makes sense. She tweeted some commonsensical thing for once in her life, and you're exactly right. When she wakes up, she's going to realize, oh, no, that's a violation of the religious cult to be commonsensical. I have to retract.
Yep, and the sad thing is that she's going to wake up.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just sad all around. Anyway, you have a nice day. I got to walk the dog.
All right, thank you, David. We'll talk to you soon. There goes David. Hey, I'm going to hold Linus through the break here so he can get enough time in here because we only have 1 minute left. And look, I think David's totally correct here. And he's totally right because, unfortunately, Cher has already been indoctrinated, or rather, I don't know, she's already went through the initiation process of the left, right? She's not going to leave that. She has to atone for her sins now at this point. I think David is totally correct. Listen to this response tweet, though, and I think this is where we all are, saying, "Hi, Cher. In all seriousness, I know that you detest Donald Trump, and that's your choice. But this tweet from you is so good and so true. All Trump supporters are trying to say is that we need to take care of our own people first. Take care of our own poor and our own suffering first. Take care of our own veterans first. And then we can worry about the world's problems." I think David's correct. She fell backwards, unfortunately, into something that made common sense to most people. But here's my thing, y'all. This is why I'm a libertarian. When left to their own devices, most of the time, people fall into the realm of common sense. Right? When left to their own devices, most of the time, people fall into the realm of common sense. 8:57 news, traffic, weather, all that. Be right back with Linus.
Where are you?
Do y'all care about this at all? I was wanting to talk about this today, but it's, I don't know, more of the same, I think. It's Carter Page on CNN saying that they were spying in Trump Tower. What? What? Well, all right, John, you're right. I want to be a libertarian. I was throughout law school. I was a part of libertarian organizations in law school, man. Then I'm not going to lie, y'all. I got scared off from that term when I came down here. It seems like East Tennesseans have such a caustic reaction to that L word, man, and I don't get it. Because let's be real, a lot of the people the East Tennesseans have voted for are, not in large part, but at least in where it matters, libertarian philosophy, okay? They are. Or at least East Tennessee voters want them to be libertarian in philosophy if you really push them on what that philosophy is rooted in. But then all of a sudden you drop that L word and people lose their ever-loving minds. So yeah, I think I'm a lot more libertarian than I let on in the show sometimes. That's for a reason, it is. Because this type of stuff I can be held accountable for later on, but people, man, they bristle, they recoil at that L word. I don't get it. We always knew I was, you can't say that around here, man. I don't know. I wish some of these people would have ran as libertarians as much as the next guy, but yeah, John, I know. Have y'all been to any of those libertarian meetings around here? I love every single one of those people that do the libertarian stuff in this area, but I don't know, man. They, dare I say, they have an organizational problem. Am I going to get in trouble for saying that? You know what I'm saying? Look, I don't know, man. I think a lot of these people in this area are running as libertarians. They just don't say it, but I'll save all this till later. You know what I'm saying? Listen to this.
Congressional testimony by Attorney General Bill Barr this week. It was this answer that sent shockwaves through an already frenzied post-Mueller investigation.
I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
Well, let me...
The question is whether it was adequately predicated, and I'm not suggesting it wasn't adequately predicated, but I need to explore that.
So what spying is Barr referring to? While he didn't elaborate, he's most likely talking about a situation involving a man by the name of Carter Page. Let's go back to the height of the 2016 campaign season. In March of 2016, Trump named Page a member of his foreign policy team. In September, Page left the campaign after his communications with Russians came to light. Then in October, the FBI applied for a foreign surveillance warrant because the agency believed, quote, Page has been the subject of targeted recruitment by the Russian government. That warrant for surveillance on Page was approved and then renewed 3 different times. Page maintains that he was never an agent of a foreign power, calling the accusations ridiculous. The president and Republicans continually claim that because the FISA warrant helped launch the Russia probe, the whole investigation is tainted. And Barr's use of the word, quote-unquote, spying seems to play right into that. Joining me now is Carter Page. Carter, A.G. Barr uses that word, spying, which to me has an illegal or illicit connotation. But in your case, you were surveilled pursuant to a court order. It was based on a finding of probable cause, and it was renewed 3 different times, right?
Kind of, I would say, Michael. A lot of that was based on exactly what we talked about 2 years ago this month, in April of 2017, which is the Dodgy dossier, paid for by the DNC and their candidate in 2016, right around the time, you were referring to that September 2016, me stepping away, taking a leave of absence from the campaign. That was a couple of days after the defamatory article by Yahoo News. So, and also by the Radio Free Europe, which is a propaganda network paid for by the Broadcasting Board of Governors and their follow-up agency in Washington. So it's absolutely, as I've noted before, ridiculous.
But my point is that when you say spying, I think it conjures up an image of, G. Gordon Liddy at the Watergate. There was a process here in which judges made 4 different determinations that the government had met some threshold of probable cause, and that's why they were granted permission to surveil you.
Okay, well, that's two separate issues. Let me kind of go back to your, on your first question on spying. Look, there's good spies and there's bad spies. There's good cops and there's bad cops. What we found with new evidence, again, it's exactly as we talked about for 10 minutes and 2 years ago this month. There was a lot of wrongdoing going on within the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI. So that is a major problem. And in terms of those warrants, we now have some initial details of those warrants in the FISA applications and granting the actual warrants themselves from the judges. And actually, the same month that you and I had that conversation in April 2017, Judge Conway from the U.S. District Court of Middle District of Florida signed off on the fraud FISA warrant application by Mr. Comey, which had just been submitted, again, the same month as our conversation. So if they actually looked at the facts and listened to what I was saying, they might have avoided this complete mess that they're in right now.
That kind of underscores that if what you're telling me is you were still being surveilled at the time you were appearing on CNN with me, that was long after you were no longer associated with the Trump campaign. And the Papadopoulos aspect of this is what began the investigation. The president is fond of saying, and I could put up a succession of tweets. I remember it was a Saturday, March of 2017, I guess, when he first, they just found out Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower. It's really all about you, and there was no Trump Tower aspect to this. But my point, Carter, is simply the investigation began before you, and it was taking place with regard to you at a time when you cut your tie with the Trump campaign.
We could talk for hours on a lot of those points, Michael, but let me kind of cut to that, the point on the series of tweets on March 4, 2017. 2 weeks later, the same person that the following month, the same month as our interview, Mr. Comey filed that fraudulent FISA warrant. He testified in Congress on March 20th that what he was saying, there's no evidence of that. To the contrary, I spent my office, when I used to work in New York, is right next door to Trump Tower. I was in and out of there quite frequently. The Starbucks coffee, the cafe downstairs. So there was absolutely spying in Trump Tower. There's no question about that. So, and look,
No, go ahead and finish your thought, but I want to ask another question.
Look, I think there is a lot of, there's a complete double standard kind of across the board in terms of, these various investigations that have been going on. And I think what
Stephen A. said that every black person in America should vote Republican for at least one election. Stephen A. Smith is
people want to know that they're going to be okay. There's a need for security. It's not just that a lot of jobs are changing. It's that when your job changes, your identity gets thrown into disarray. And I think we've experienced that very acutely in the industrial Midwest. And I think when that happens, that can also leave people vulnerable to radicalization. I'm not saying that we can excuse racism in the name of economic anxiety. I'm saying that some of the anxieties that have arisen make people ripe to be targeted by efforts to radicalize them. The same is what happens in the Middle East. And in my part of the country, people are wondering whether they fit, whether they belong, and what they're supposed to do. Even if we figure out a way to keep the income level, which when we're working really hard at this we can do, a lot of jobs are changing. It's not people.
What I care about but at least that their kids can do slightly better than they have. That was kind of the rule for a lot of certainly the post-war period in this country, and it no longer is. So my question always is not like what party wins or, is my economic theory validated or not? It's can we get back to that, or can we get as close to that as we possibly can? And we're moving farther away from it. That's my frustration.
So I think that there are a couple issues that you mentioned there, and I might want to bifurcate them for purposes of the discussion. So issue number one is sort of the free speech issue. People should be able to say what they want. People should be able to that's a sphere that you would never violate. And so in the end, you want to live, if you're in a democracy, any democracy, you want to live in a country where the middle class, normal people, with 100 IQs making 80 grand a year, end date.
(9:09 in the morning). Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Facebook stuff, Instagram, Patreon, all the other stuff. Doesn't matter what the stuff is. Just type in Real News Radio. Same handle for all your social media things. Patreon, by the way, is where we throw up the podcast, or rather, Roz does that. It's patreon.com/Real News Radio. It's a commercial-free version of that. You can also, if you want to, if you like this program, go check out either our YouTube or just go to the Facebook there. I post these programs in their entirety. And the Cool Kids table, get a lot of these conversations off air. Some of the best stuff happens in between breaks, unfortunately. That's where Mr. Henry starts to expose a little bit of the Grant persona. Hey, it's 9:10 in the morning, though. Crown Plaza call number. It's good to go, yeah. 9:10 in the morning. I'm going to get to Linus's call here in just a second. We're talking sanctuary cities. We're talking Trump's proposal, apparently, to send migrant caravans to sanctuary cities. I think I've expressed my opinion on this fairly clearly. Like if you're forcing Cher to fall backwards into some common sense proposal, here's her tweet saying, I understand helping struggling immigrants, but my city, Los Angeles, isn't taking care of its own. How about the 50,000 plus citizens who live on the streets, people who live below poverty line and are hungry? If my state can't take care of its own, many of these are veterans, how can it take care of more? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think David's correct here. Unfortunately, she fell into common sense today because 2 years ago she tweeted this out. Those who can must take a dreamer into their homes to protect them. I'm ready to do this, and others in my business will do the same. #sanctuary. So which one is it? Now when you're presented with the actual opportunity to do something about what you said and claimed that you were wanting to do, now all of a sudden you have a very diverse opinion on that. Or if it's not a diverse opinion, it's a Republican opinion. Now I don't want to rehash what I've done for the past 2 hours if you want to go back and listen to all this other stuff that we did before. I do eventually want to bring this into, and this seems like a very odd transition, but bear with me for the next hour, I'll get us there. It seems like an odd transition, but I do eventually want to bring this into something that Stephen A. Smith said 9 years ago. An opportunity I think Republicans are ripe for right now that we may not be recognizing. And how this actually plays into Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who I think is the next rising star in the Democrat Party. And I'll capitalize on this here in a second, and I'll bring this all back home. But the point I'm going to eventually make is that Republicans and Democrats have a very interesting time right now, where it's a sort of a new zeitgeist, right? We're seeing a new paradigm being developed. That Overton window is shifting. Whatever terms you want to use for this. But Republicans and Democrats are now just beginning to see this new opening, this new window, to put forward conversation, terminologies, rhetoric, arguments, genuine debate and discourse, like in a way that we haven't been able to before. And I think Mayor Pete is touching on some very similar issues that Trump was touching on, but the end solution is, in my opinion, is dangerous. And I eventually want to tie this to Tucker Carlson, oddly enough, as well, to hopefully prove this entire point for this hour. Now, I'm just going to tease that there because we'll go to Linus on the Crown Plaza call number. If you have an opinion, by the way, it's 865-888-TALK. That's 865-888-8255 on the Crown Plaza call number. Linus, thanks for hanging through the break there, sir. What's on your mind?
Well, fellas, this is like a buffet, and everything in it is so good you don't know where to start first.
That's true.
It's a fact. Have you ever watched a Kung Fu movie?
Oh, I love Kung Fu, man. And no joke, Lynn, this is one of my favorite genres, seriously.
Seriously. Well, what you're looking at is basically kind of a political Kung Fu movie. You've got a bunch of thugs out here that have jumped what they thought was an easy target and got their butts kicked.
My
Donald
style
Trump
is better than your style, Linus. That's what's going on.
Right. Donald Trump is a master of political jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And he's turned them on their heads. One of the principles of martial arts is applying maximum force in a point to another point on a target. Well, what you're looking at here is Donald Trump hitting them right where they lack something serious here, and that is a total lack of any kind of sense of humor.
Right.
This is hilarious if you think about it. Years ago when I was growing up in Lonsdale, we had a couple of neighbors that didn't get along. And one of them thought it'd be funny to throw bags of trash over the fence into his neighbor's yard. Well, he turned around and threw the trash back in this guy's yard plus his, and it stopped. And this is pretty much what you see here.
I'll tell you, Linus, too, one of the other principles of a lot of Kung Fu films that I watch, and I don't know if this is in the realm of Tai Chi or what this is, but it's to use the momentum and force, you use your opponent's force and momentum back against them. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Exactly. He uses force against him, and that's what Trump does.
Exactly. And I say this all the time. People think I'm joking, but the Kung Fu Panda films are incredible philosophy to really play out in your life. In one of these Kung Fu Panda films, at the very end, there's this new guy that's trying to take over China, okay? He's the new dynastic ruler, and he rolls out these big cannons, and it's supposed to be able to destroy Kung Fu. The new wave is destroying the old wave type thing. And what does the Kung Fu Panda do in the end? He gets shot at by a bunch of these cannons, but he ends up using this sort of yin and yang principle to use that enemy's momentum of those cannonballs, and he circles them around his body and forces the momentum back at them. It goes back to what Ray said as well, too. He's using the momentum of the supposed sanctuary city to throw back at them. All right, this is your appeal, Democrats. This is your argument. You make sense of it. I'm done trying to make sense of it for you. I'm going to use your own momentum against you. Now you are forced to finally respond. What do you do with the sanctuary city thing?
Exactly. I've got another thing I want to put in here that I think is really serious, and that's this. Do you know what the logistics are in moving, say, 12,000 people?
I have no idea.
Especially through a primitive place like southern Mexico?
None. No, I wouldn't even begin to know that.
You got to have porta potties. You got to have medicine. You got to have transportation. You got to have food. There's a lot of money and an organization behind this.
Right.
If we actually have a CIA that works, why can't they find out who these people are and let us deal with them?
No, that's true. That is true. And I'll tell you, too.
Something's rotten in Denmark here.
Well, something to lend credence to what you're saying, too. It was either the Honduran president or the Guatemala president. Don't quote me. I'm pretty sure it was the Guatemala president who came out with an interview and said exactly what you're saying. He said, never before in my history as a president, never before in my history in public policy or public life have I seen a more well-orchestrated effort. And he said, every 10 miles, there's tents with food and medical care and water. He said, I've never had that kind of outreach to my country ever before. Since I've been involved in public service, I've never had this kind of outreach to my country, and it's only outreach to migrate people away from and through my country.
Exactly. You take a look at this and apply a little logic to it, you're simply going to have to ask yourself, what are they trying to keep secret here? Is this Americans doing this? Could very well be Americans doing this. Could it be the Chinese doing this? Well, if it were the Chinese or the Russians or some of our other overseas enemies, I'm sure they'd be trying to make political hay out of it.
Well,
it comes right back to our own people financing this under the table.
Look, I mean, I'm telling you, if you put anything in that Cloward-Piven strategy, right? I mean, you would have to think, man, you would have to think, what's one better way to try and look, you dismantle the American welfare system while at the same time sort of capitalizing on the oil-rich areas that are in South America, okay? You said you sort of do the two birds, one stone type thing, right?
Well, what I'm looking at, my biggest problem has been I can't stop applying logic to things. I'm one of those people who went to school when they actually taught you to think. That's been a long time ago. And when I look at this, it keeps coming back to what I'm saying. Follow the money, find out who benefits from this, and you'll find out who's behind it.
Right.
And the fact is, they won't do this, which tells me the Democratic Party is probably involved up to their eyes in financing this invasion.
Right.
And now Trump's turned around and offered to give them a dose of their own medicine, and they're literally having a stroke here on TV.
It is. And what Trump's offering to do is say, hey, I'll help you. I'll help you bring your entire thing, though everything you've been orchestrating, I'll help you bring that to full-on fruition. But you're going to have to admit that there was a plan to begin with, right? I'll help you complete the goal, but in so doing, you're going to have to admit to the American people that there was a plan to reach that goal all along. That it isn't just happenstance. We didn't just sort of contextually fall upon the situation now where, well, we have a problem, we have to figure. We didn't start the problem. We have a problem, we have to figure out how to do something with it. That's why we have these sanctuary cities. And another thing that Trump's doing is dismantling and removing that moral peg, right? That's what, if it was always a moral component to the sanctuary city, we want to take you in, you're good for the economy, that type of stuff. Okay, stand on that moral peg then. Seriously stand on it.
We're right back to martial arts again. I want to feel good at everybody else's expense is their motto. So he's turned around and applied pressure to that point and saying, all right, you want to feel good? Here they are. Invite them to your table.
Right. Exactly, man. Exactly. Linus, great call, buddy. Appreciate hearing from you. We'll talk to you soon.
Sure. Bye-bye.
There goes Linus. Look, another thing this is doing, okay, I saw somebody tweet out, what was this? I can't find it anymore. Basically, principle being, okay, yeah, some of you Christians are being hypocritical about this stance as well, too. Christians, you also have a moral component to consider. You know, helping the least of these type thing. Okay, all right, granted. Fine, we do. But I've been very clear about this, okay? I've been very clear. Christians, we do have a moral component to consider that we need to help out the least of these. That's what we're going to be held accountable for later on. Now, helping out the least of these means helping out our own. It means helping out those that we actually have an opportunity to help first. I think that's what Cher fell back into as well. And moreover, let's make a real charge with Republicans and Christians right now. Let's start using some of this tithe money to set up food pantry on top of food pantry on top of food pantry. Let's solve our own homeless situation right now. Let's go out in Knoxville and figure out what to do with this situation of mental illness. Let's create legislative situations. Let's let that help work with our communities, that help work with churches, that help work with outreach programs to solve the situation that we currently have. Because here's what I'm saying. People get this misnomer and this misconception that if you focus on yours first, that necessarily implies or means that you're excluding others. Wrong. If we don't figure out our own situation first, there is no way we can help out somebody else. That's the point. If we can't figure out the situation that's currently in front of us, how in the world are we expected to be able to figure out somebody else's situation? 9:20 in the morning, hit this break, be right back.
What people believe. That is a kind of, that's a sphere that you would never violate. And so in the end, you want to live, if you're in a democracy, any democracy, you want to live in a country where the middle class, normal people, with 100 IQs making 80 grand a year can lead, productive, meaningful lives unbothered by the people in power. And they have the hope, at least, that their kids can do slightly better than they have. That was kind of the rule for a lot of certainly the post-war period in this country, and it no longer is. So my question always is not like what party wins or, is my economic theory validated or not? It's can we get back to that or can get as close to that as we possibly can. Well, you want to live, that is a Jew is trying to do that. We all have to live together. You can't sleep in a crosswalk. Sorry, it's not allowed. But what you never do is try to control or mandate what people believe. That is a kind of, that's a sphere that you would never violate. And so in the end, you want to live, if you're in a democracy, that's a sphere that you would never violate. Lives unbothered by the people in power, and they have the certain things that you believe are true and act on them if you want to get to the place you deserve to be. So what I just noticed, just as an American, and I'm not an intellectual, I'm a talk show host, so this is a very obvious thing, that our national motto has been redefined to its mirror image. So of course it was out of many one, and now it is diversity is our strength. So I think it's fair if you, without asking my consent, replace the core principle of our country. It's fair for me to ask if that principle is worth organizing a country around. So I just asked the obvious question, is diversity our strength? And of course, like so much they say, it's not only untrue, it's the opposite of what is true. Rewarded for it. That is an argument against racism. Explicitly.
And so for that, I'm a racist. It's like, no, you don't understand. Dividing line between Obama and Trump is not even on economics, where in some areas there's actually some sort of populist agreement, but it's really on these sort of cultural divisions where President Obama was basically saying, we can be divided into various ethnic groups, all of whom have been victimized by America, and then we can create a coalition of the dispossessed to come back in and sweep into power.
That's it, Brian? Yes.
9:23 in the morning. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, to Real News. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, looking a little bit more forward into the future. Okay, so everybody's eventually caught up. And everybody, I mean, Republicans, those that have been following for quite some time, maybe not everyone. Sean and I have conversations all the time that the last couple of, months, the last couple of years have been slightly disheartening for Sean and myself. And we like to pride ourselves, by we, I mean Sean and myself and my buddies or whatever else, the people that are in this realm, we kind of like to tend to pride ourselves on being able to see what the next threshold is, okay? You take the old school tactics that don't change necessarily. The old school Solinsky tactics. I just finished reading through the Communist Manifesto, I think for about the third or fourth time over the weekend. Why are you doing that, Mr. Ernie? Well, I'm trying to understand the other side, okay? This is the way I approach my life. I'm trying to understand what the other side is arguing so I can figure out the reasonable counter-argument, not just the reasonable counter-argument, but one that is palatable to the American people. Okay, so for a long time, I prided myself on being able to see what that next wave is, seeing what the next angle is, seeing the next con, the next game. And I started to lose that a little bit. But there's been such a wave of stuff happening, I truly believe now that, like we used to say in the show, reality is coming back. It is. Reality is coming back. And whether people know it or not, just like Cher, and just like David's admitting this morning, and I think he's correct, when people inadvertently fall backwards into common sense, that's when you grab them. That is the window that we are living in right now. Take my word for it. I promise you, I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. This is a different time that we're in right now. This is a time when people are stepping into not conservative traps, but this logical hole is opening to envelop anybody that's willing to give it a chance. And that's when the time is that you have to capitalize. This is what I'm saying. For such a long time, Republicans have felt like, myself included, that we didn't have the opportunity to pitch something that was reasonable to everybody. We've been so focused on our own party and these marginal little slices here and there just to win an election.
Stephen A. said that...
I'll get to this clip here in a second. The time is now to start pitching genuine policies that have nothing to do with republicanism, conservatism, libertarianism, Tea Party, constitutionalism, socialism, I don't care. The time is now to take that space back. To take that space back where you force your opponent to deal with the situation at hand. Trump is doing it. And look how easily he is doing it. Are you hearing what I'm saying? The time is now to have the serious conversations that we were unable to have before because these preemptive labels would constantly shut you down. What do you work for a Fox News affiliate talk radio program? You consider yourself a conservative, a constitutionalist? You're a xenophobe. You didn't even listen to what I had to say yet. Yeah, well, you're a xenophobe. Why? Do you hear what I'm saying? People are finally starting to care about that question of why, whether they know it or not. Whether they know it or not, for at least 6 hours, Cher has now all of a sudden started to care about the question of why. Now she's going to recant. David's correct. She's going to recant. She's going to make a different statement. She's going to apologize. But when these small little segments come up, we must capitalize. And we must capitalize not using Republican, not using Democrat, not using any of this stuff. We must be okay with saying Alexandria Cortez is an absolute idiot for proposing a $93 trillion program that we could reasonably solve some better way. And you cannot be afraid of when the retort is, well, you're just hitting her, you're just critiquing her because she's a woman of color. I don't care. That's on you. That's on you. My proposal, by the way, Miss Alexandria Cortez, you want to make the most green deal possible? Let's get involved in nuclear energy. Let's have a conversation about that. I agree with you. Something needs to be done. I don't want to spend $93 trillion to do it. I want it to be legitimately renewable energy. Do you know right now the nuclear energy in America has less carbon emissions than solar and wind power combined? Did you know right now that France produces about 75% of their energy from nuclear energy? Did you know that we basically developed that program? Did you know, Alexandria Cortez, that I'm willing to have a serious conversation with you? Now is the time that we can capitalize on people being open to having conversations, because some people are so insanely confused as to what they should even believe anymore. Everything is happening so quickly now. These arguments are collapsing upon themselves in an instantaneous moment. And that is the time that you grab them, right when the Cher is in this place right now. When she is in this place of seriously questioning her fundamental beliefs. Now, what am I getting to? What I'm getting to is the reason why I consider myself to be a conservative is because I believe in the genuine nature of a human being. I believe that when people are left to their own devices, that if someone is not trying to manipulate them, we don't have an all-ruling priest class. When there's not some type of philosopher king mentality that somebody knows better than you know for your own life. When people are left to their own devices, by and large, they usually make the common sense decision. And I truly believe that Republicans or conservatives or whatever this ideology is, that is the ideology that makes sense to the most people. Frankly speaking, the entire LGBT movement, if our worldview was pitched properly, they would vote Republican their entire lives. If I were speaking to a transgender individual right now, and I said something like this, something so groundbreaking, so revolutionary that they've never heard in their entire lives, that your existence, I recognize you as an individual that matters, that's worth something more than what my government tells you you're worth. Your existence is not contingent upon a piece of legislation from someone that you didn't elect. You mean more to this society than that. That's republicanism, by the way. That's libertarian thought. You don't matter just because your government says that you matter. You matter because you exist. You get it? 9:31. Come back and play a few clips to prove this point, and then try and paint a picture where I think we're all going with this. Be right back.
And the new demographic shift will basically buoy our boat all the way to victory from now until the end of time. And then the backlash for that was, well, wait a second. You guys don't get to do identity politics when you've been saying that identity politics is what's wrong with America for generations correctly. So why are you doing that now?
Well, as a practical matter, it just doesn't work. I mean, countries don't hang together by accident, particularly large, diverse. Like, demand that everybody who comes to this...
Distinguish elite from elitists.
Right.
Because elites, to me, are folks who very often... You have elite in every field. You have elite in the NBA because they're the best basketball players.
Right.
You have elite economically, many times because they went to a good school and because they have generated some sort of service or good that a lot of people want to buy into. And then you have elitists who are, in my opinion, the people who are really the problem, the folks who think that they ought to be able to cram down their values on somebody else. Are you conflating elite with elitist? Because obviously, look, you're an elite, right? You're a guy who's very wealthy. You've done very well for yourself.
Well, that's the whole point of the book, is that, and then I hope one thing I try never to do is pose as something I'm not.
Right, no, I'm not, and that's not an accusation. Right?
No, of course not. No, but I just want to be extra clear.
I'm in the league
This is
too,
not
right? I
from
mean, I
the
went to Harvard Law
pages, but
School and we do well. So
I grew up in La Jolla and Georgetown. I'm not here to give you the view from coal country. I'm here to give you the view from the world I grew up in and have lived in always, which is the world of the people making a disproportionate number of the key decisions in our country: economic, political, cultural. Determine, like who makes the most money.
So I guess the question was, is that an economic status or is that a mindset? Because
no, it's a practical reality. Every society is hierarchical. I'm not arguing against that. People are innately hierarchical. So are dogs. It's a mammal thing. Okay, so you're not going to change that. There will always be people who are making more decisions than other people, who are making more money than other people. They are the people at the top of your society. What has changed from previous generations is not simply the magnitude of the concentration of wealth and power, though I do think, measurably, that it is more disproportionate than ever. But that's not really what's changed. What's actually changed is the mindset of the people in charge. They no longer acknowledge they're in charge, and they no longer acknowledge that they have a responsibility to the people whose lives they influence. So the robber barons who we learn, Carnegie and Rockefeller and Phipps and all the people we learned to hate in ninth grade, those people, had a lot of flaws. And I do think the concentration of their wealth was a threat that did justify what Teddy Roosevelt did. You know what I mean? Breaking up the trust was really important to allow capitalism to continue. But one thing I would say in their defense is they knew they were in charge. They admitted it, and they understood that it came with obligations, because it always does. If you're a parent, you're in complete charge of your children. You can do whatever you want to them. You can make them wear funny hats, dance on one foot. You can make them speak a different language. You can do whatever you want. They're your kids. You're God. But with those rights, your rights as a parent, come obligations to take care of the people over whom you have control. And that is what has been lost. And so Travis, the teenage billionaire who ran Uber, founded it, oversaw the second biggest employee workforce in the world, and yet he didn't claim them as employees. He didn't pay their health insurance. 1/3 of them lost money working for him. Now, you could say, well, it's the free market. Okay, fine. But it doesn't absolve him of his core responsibility. If you're creating a hierarchy of responsibilities, first is to the people closest to you, and that would include your children, your spouse, your employees, and then to the world. They've inverted that. So Travis was always lecturing the rest of us about police brutality or Black Lives Matter or global warming or whatever. What he was doing was displacing his responsibility from the real and the tangible to the theoretical and cost-free. So I would get these notices on my Uber app being like, let's pause for a moment to remember the victims of police violence, which that's fine. But before you start lecturing me about my moral inadequacies and about how you care more than I do, maybe you could pay for the health insurance of your freaking employees, pal, Mr. Teenage Billionaire Guy. So this is actually part of a much larger syndrome that grows out of the meritocracy the SAT created 60 years ago, that has convinced the people in charge that everything that, and trust me, this is the world I'm from, has convinced them that, of course, they're richer and better educated and, by the way, more attractive than the people in the great middle of the country, in the medieval parts of the country. Okay, that's all true. But they're convinced that they're succeeding because they're better. They are better. They're just a better person. I made better choices than you.
This is where I think we come to the second half where we disagree. So I talked about bifurcating sort of the conversation into elite control of your life in terms of family life and everything else, with the economic suggestion that the meritocracy itself is deeply flawed, and that the meritocracy can only survive if the people on the top of the meritocracy start to essentially give things away to a certain extent. So the Uber suggestion that you make, for example, the reason that Uber operates with a bunch of independent contractors is obviously because it's less costly. It's because it's less costly that Uber is able to have an extraordinarily profitable enterprise that allows them to have all these independent contractors in the first place. If you have employees, then basically you have a taxi medallion company, and that restricts supply. Obviously, that leads to increased pricing, which leads to more competitiveness with the taxi companies, a worse product for consumers. So the question is, when it comes to this idea that the meritocracy itself is deeply flawed, I want to read you a quote from your book because it struck me, because it's obviously a really well-written book, and it makes, I look to this idea that the meritocracy itself is deeply flawed. The question is, when it comes to
9:38
in the morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so we've spoken about Trump. If you're just joining the program right now, spoken about Trump, spoken about his alleged proposal to send these migrant caravans to sanctuary cities. We've spoken about Cher now all of a sudden becoming Republican. She's not. She just so happened to accidentally fall into some type of commonsensical tweet. David's correct. She's going to have to recant on that. Ray is also correct now that what Trump is really doing is forcing Democrats to finally make our own talking points. Linus is also correct. There's a bit of kung fu game going on currently, where it's basically, and Eric said this on Facebook earlier too, this is basically just, I don't know, look, forcing Democrats to finally answer the question once and for all, finally answer the question, what do you actually feel about sanctuary cities? Because God forbid that, you have to respond to Trump's rhetoric. And the beautiful thing about the bully pulpit of the presidency is that you must take it seriously. You must. And by you, I mean anybody. The proverbial you that's listening right now, Democrat you, Republican you, most importantly, the mainstream media you must take him seriously at his word. You have to. Now, Trump realizes that's what you have to do. Therefore, he's going to be able to exploit it. Now, what I'm saying is, in this small window of opportunity that we have, when people are genuinely questioning platitudes, when people are genuinely questioning, possibly in the first time ever in their political lives, because Trump has forced a large portion of this country to finally be concerned about politics for the first time ever. And those uninformed masses actually end up going to vote. And some of those uninformed masses are much more intelligent than we give them credit for. This is where I think Republicans need to capitalize on something that we have not had the opportunity to do so before. Because the veil is finally being pulled back. We have pierced that veil. We are all now seeing the Wizard of Oz for what he truly is, which is nothing more than just, well, some small guy who's just pulling a bunch of levers behind a screen. Listen to Stephen A. Smith. Yes, he's the ESPN host, Stephen A. Smith. If you don't know who Stephen A. Smith is, he's a guy that talks sports upon sports upon sports. He's one of the more prolific figures in sports commentary world. He's on ESPN. He's all over the place. I don't know a single sport this guy doesn't give commentary on. Now, they actually had this guy on CNN. They have him on a multitude of political shows. He makes a very interesting point. This is back, I believe, in 2010. He's making this argument. Listen to this.
Stephen A. said that every black person in America should vote Republican for at least one election. Stephen A. Smith is joining me now. Stephen, who are you trying to send a message to? Republicans, Democrats, African Americans, all of the above?
I'd go with all of the above. That sounds about right, but specifically the Democratic Party from the standpoint that I definitely believe that the black vote has been taken for granted, and primarily the black community is at fault in my estimation in that regard, simply because on one hand, we're giving one party our vote because they've successfully gone about the business of convincing our community that the other party, the Republican Party, is completely against the interest of the black community. And as a result, we've been very transparent in our support. We've bought it hook, line, and sinker. We look at the Republican Party. I'm not talking about every single one of us, of course, but vast majority of black Americans look at the Republican Party as the enemy. We look at the Democratic Party, even tacitly, as our support base. And as a result, we are very transparent in our support for them. So because of it, they have a license to take us for granted. The Republican Party has a license to summarily dismiss us because they believe they'll never get our vote anyway.
One more time. That is, I couldn't have said it better myself. This is 9 years ago. One more time.
As our support base, and as a result, we are very transparent in our support for them. So because of it, they have a license to take us for granted. The Republican Party has a license to summarily dismiss us because they believe they'll never get our vote anyway. And then we end up finding ourselves devoid of any kind of representation whatsoever because nobody is really competing to garner our vote and our support. So I said what I said because I wanted folks in my community to stand up and recognize that if you go to a house or you go buy a car or whatever the case may be, you don't just see something you want and say, I want that. Tell me what the price is and I'll pay for it. Somebody has to flatter you in order to garner your dollars and your support. I think the same should apply to politicians who represent us.
You understand what he's saying? I mean, true words have never been spoken, especially now. That was from 9 years ago, y'all. Think about what this guy Stephen A. Smith is saying. You don't have to be a political expert. He is not a political expert, but he's speaking the truth. The Democrat Party, for such a long time, has taken for granted not just the African-American vote, especially now, any given vote that is not a Caucasian male or female. They've taken that vote for granted. So what Stephen A. Smith is saying, even 9 years ago, the Democrat Party is no longer working to convince marginalized minorities that they must vote Democrat because we convinced them a long time ago. At the same time, Republicans, frustratingly enough, are not trying to win our vote because they've been convinced that the Democrats have already won that vote for a lifetime. So what he's saying is these marginalized minorities don't have a voice anywhere. Now, he's speaking about the African-American community, but you can easily extrapolate that to any community out there. Democrats aren't fighting for our vote anymore because they think they already have it won. Republicans aren't fighting for our vote because they think they're never going to get it. So that leaves us in the middle, this unwoke crowd, or this woke crowd, depending on which way you look at it, that doesn't have a voice. This is what I'm saying. What Stephen A. Smith was pitching 9 years ago has now come to full fruition. That voiceless center mass that has not been genuinely fought for in such a long time, whether Trump knows he's doing it, whether anybody else by way of their rhetoric knows they're doing it, what we have an opportunity to do now is fight for that mass. Now is such a beautiful time to open up this realm of conversation to the people like a Stephen A. Smith and say to those people, it's okay to leave the Democrat Party. I'm not saying come to the Republican Party. I'm just saying think for yourself for once in your lives. On anything. If what I have to do, here's tying it full circle, if what I have to do is convince you that I'm seriously considering sending migrant loads worth of caravan people, immigrants, to your sanctuary city, if I have to play this silly, petty, rhetorical game with you to finally get you to have that conversation at your own dinner tables, I will. But once you have that conversation, wake up for a little bit. Wake up and realize that the Democrat Party is not fighting for what's in your best interest. The Republican Party, unfortunately, has not had the ability to fight for what's in your best interest. Even if they are, you're not going to listen to them. And all it takes is just about a minute's worth of someone dutifully and genuinely considering an opposing worldview. And I truly do believe that most people are willing to change their minds. They're willing to change their minds if they can. Now, this new shift, this new paradigm that we're entering now, this new situation by which a large portion of the voting populace is now interested, look, I'm trying to pull all this together for you, okay, is now interested in politics like they never have been before. I can't tell you the people on a daily basis that I speak to that say, I've never been turned on to politics, but Trump forced me to do that. Cool, good. We have a representative republic of those that participate. We don't just have a republic, okay? Get that right. That's a good thing. Now, now that so many people are actually participating more, you couple this with the instantaneous media switch that we have. You couple that with Trump making alleged major policy decisions through a tweet or through some off-the-cuff remark. And finally, this all capitalizes on what I've been trying to push towards for a long time we figured this out a long time ago. We've had these conversations a long time ago. But so many people, again, it's a resurgence, it's a revitalization, man. It's like a new age renaissance. We haven't been on the precipice of change. I promise y'all, I'm not trying to cheerlead something here that I'm not really backing. We haven't been on the precipice of change like this literally since the founding of this country, I promise you. We haven't openly had conversations about stuff like this in a couple hundred years. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting, okay? There's a select few individuals that are recognizing that's where we're going. There's a select few individuals that recognize the final aspect to this entire scenario that I'm putting together. All this stuff of this people finally becoming aware of the situation that they're in. All this stuff of these people not just being aware of these situations, but genuinely, dutifully considering both sides of an argument. Now you couple that with what this Pete Buttigieg guy is talking about, what Tucker Carlson is talking about, this new age caste system This disparity between the haves and the have-nots. And this is why I'm saying, y'all, it's the same argument we had before, but it's the first time we've had this argument in a couple hundred years. The same sense of class disparity and the inevitable class envy that comes along with that. I know I'm getting a little bit philosophical here, but for those that are following, keep following along. These are the symptoms of revolutionary thought that have been played out for every major society prior to us. If we don't recognize that right now, because some people are, if we don't recognize that right now and try and get in front of this ball that's rolling through, I'm not trying to speak in conspiracy theories here, I'm just saying, I'll hit this break, I'll finish this out. Hit this break, be right back.
My mission statement is to teach you the wisdom of how money works for better stewardship, to potentially have more, to give more, and to leave more. If becoming a better steward of your wealth is important to you, and you need a dependable retirement plan as well, call for my video that explains all the ways I will help you. Please call 691-1211. That's 691-1211.
Here's a news flash from Dayton Hilton of Dayton's Pest Control.
Bedbugs have moved into this area, but don't worry, Dayton's is ready to help.
I hear that Dayton's is one of 2 bedbug-free trained companies in the state.
We are.
Dayton, please explain what your bedbug treatment entails.
Well, first, don't throw your bed, mattress, box springs, or couch away. And we don't require any prep to your house prior to arrival.
If you suspect you have bedbugs, call Dayton's at 588-6686 for an inspection and estimate. Dayton's reputation is your guarantee of quality.
Hey, this is Dr. Jake Parrish from Victory Health Radio. Are you struggling with fatigue or headaches or even a digestive crisis? No matter what you're struggling with, there is help here. Changing your health is about changing your thinking. Listen to
Facebook, y'all following where I'm going? I'm going to try and bring this all back home here in a second, but yeah, just
join her and all her Power Ranger friend as they attempted to win her name back. Rescue Roz 2 in theaters near you. Are we recording? Can I go on this?
All right.
These last couple segments I know have been difficult to follow along with. I get that. Go back and listen to it later on if you want, or just follow with where I'm going, because I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not every generation, and it's very, very far and few between that you stumble upon a sort of sense of human enlightenment that allows an individual to break from their own echo chamber, that allows an individual to break from what they've been told is necessary. You following me? We don't have that a lot in human societies individual. We certainly don't have that a lot in American history. But we have now entered a day and age, we've entered a time period where objective truth can no longer be smothered, right? There's a beacon of hope out there where that light is piercing through finally, and some people are seeing it. We don't have that all the time. And we don't have it all the time where these massive entities at the top constantly squeeze and force you down. Behave, they say. Abide, they say. Occasionally, you'll have a few that jump off and say no. typically they're deemed kooks, crazy. You have some mental problem? You're socially ostracized. You're religiously excommunicated. We are in a time now where a large percentage of people are doing that. And yes, Cher fell backwards into something that makes sense for today. But if she would stop and take a second, and here's the thing, Cher will not stop and take a second that Trump is correct, that we need to look after our own first. She won't, but some of the people reading that tweet will. Now, here's the final piece of this analysis, okay? Only a few have woken up to realize that if you tackle that aspect, if you discuss in that realm to those individuals that are willing to change, that is the true quintessential definition of a grassroots movement. Something that will organically grow, that regardless of the effort to do so, you cannot stop. Here's my final fear. A few select individuals are recognizing what's happening right now. This major monumental change that have happened throughout human history, and you can go one of two directions. On opposite ends of the spectrum. Before I run out of time, here's Tucker Carlson on Ben Shapiro's show talking about just this issue. Listen to how similar Tucker Carlson sounds to Mayor Pete Buttigieg, talking about the same issues, but drastically different solutions. This is my fear. Listen.
And so in the end, you want to live, if you're in a democracy, any democracy, you want to live in a country where the middle class, normal people, with 100 IQs making 80 grand a year can lead, productive, meaningful lives unbothered by the people in power. And they have the hope, at least, that their kids can do slightly better than they have. That was kind of the rule for a lot of certainly the post-war period in this country, and it no longer is. So my question always is not like what party wins or, is my economic theory validated or not? It's can we get back to that, or can we get as close to that as we possibly can? And we're moving farther away from it. That's my frustration.
So, all right, now you heard what he was saying. I'll explain all this in a second. Now listen to Mayor Pete Buttigieg, okay? Tell me which is which. Tell me which is which. Tucker Carlson, the question, the part that I'm not able to play on the show right now, he was responding to, eventually goes on to respond to, hey, what do you think about Elon Musk and his self-driving cars? Would you put forward some piece of legislation that would stop self-driving cars from coming in because it might destroy hundreds of thousands of jobs from Americans? And oddly enough, Tucker Carlson said, yeah, I would be totally for that piece of legislation. What Tucker Carlson is addressing, what Bernie Sanders was addressing and is continuing addressing, what Trump was addressing, is this new sense of meritocracy, the threshold of which if you are not born into a particular class, intellect or otherwise, you cannot broach the old school American dream. You capitalize on that feeling of losing your sense of identity. That is a wildfire. That is a political wildfire that you cannot pay for. And it only comes around every so often. And when it does, we need to be constantly vigilant about the people that are capitalizing on that reality. Because you can pitch anything to anyone that feels like their existence is about to be wiped off this face of the earth. If you can save their existence, listen to Pete Buttigieg.
People want to know that they're going to be okay. There's a need for security. It's not just that a lot of jobs are changing. It's that when your job changes, your identity gets thrown into disarray. And I think we've experienced that very acutely in the industrial Midwest. And I think when that happens, that can also leave people vulnerable to radicalization. I'm not saying that we can excuse racism in the name of economic anxiety. I'm saying that some of the anxieties that have arisen make people ripe to be targeted by efforts to radicalize them. The same as what happens in the Middle East. And in my part of the country, people are wondering whether they fit, whether they belong, and what they're supposed to do. Even if...
Do you hear what he's saying? What he just said. In my part of the country, people are wondering if they fit, if they belong, what are they supposed to do? That is a brand new thing in my life. That is the thing that only comes around once every generation or so. People genuinely questioning, what am I? What am I supposed to do? I no longer trust these institutions that have always told me what I was supposed to do. Once you get the populace, once you get the masses, once you get the middle class, start genuinely questioning what their life is worth, what they're supposed to do, what they're doing. And what Stephen A. Smith was saying is those voiceless masses are crying to have a voice from something, anything. Trump just started to capitalize on that. And I told you the left version of that was coming. I told y'all. This is what I'm fearful of, though. The ability to have broad strokes one way or the other. Full-on statism as opposed to full-on communism. 9:58 got it in the program today. Glenn Beck coming up next. Tomorrow, be back doing it big.
All right, Facebook. I'm going to have to spend more time on that, I think, tomorrow. Will y'all follow me, though? You get what I'm saying? Maybe it's just because I've been doing a lot of research recently, watching a lot of documentaries on, like, different revolutions, different periods of revolution. I don't know, man. I'm also just trying to figure out why Trump's rhetoric works so well so quickly. And also I've been trying to figure out why the counter of that, Alexander Cortez and Omar and the other one I forget, why their rhetoric is so outrageous but is being just as effective as Trump's version of populism. And I think that's what it is, man. I think it's the class envy. People are ripe for anything to be changed, right? They're ripe for, frankly speaking, someone to promise a solution for you to exist again, right? Democrats have taken the minority's existence for granted, and they realize it. I don't know, man. Either way, y'all are the best. I love you. I'm not sure what we're doing tomorrow. Maybe I'll try and play some more of this stuff out. Who knows? Yeah, I'll end it there. I don't think we have any guests for tomorrow. We have Kelly on Wednesday. Hang on. Yeah, I don't see any guests for tomorrow yet. I'll let you know, though. We'll see. All right, love y'all. Peace.